Mom, that you?
There now. Just relax. You've been asleep for almost 9 hours now.
I had a horrible nightmare. I dreamt that I went back in time. It was terrible.
Well, you're safe and sound now, back in good old 1955.
1955?
Hey, Gila.
Hey, Rob.
Hello.
Hi.
You know where we are.
I do, and I have to tell you, it's a little weird because we're like completely on opposite sides of the table. I'm looking in the window. It's sunny. This is weird, man.
So we are at the beginning of a brand new season.
Hooray!
Of Modern Technology Watches.
Amazing.
This is season 2, episode 1.
So 201.
201.
201.
Episode 201 of Modern Technology Watches. And this is going to be a very special episode because we're going to teach you some moral lessons about family and love and, I don't know, not burning your house down like Valerie Harper's family.
So it's a very special episode of Modern Technology Watches.
It's a very special episode of Modern Technology Watches.
I'm so excited.
And we're doing things a little differently because Gila already knows what movie we're going to watch.
I do, and it is something that, much like I said at the top of our Goonies episode, the fact that I have not yet seen this movie is probably going to cost me a whole lot of the pop culture cred I have built up over time.
And joining us will be a pair of very special guests who
Yes.
we will let introduce themselves when they get here. But what we've done is our friends are not here yet, and what we're going to do is we're going to watch the movie. They're watching the movie on their own time because it works best for all our schedules where we can all watch the movie on our own time. And then they will join us here. And the next part of this podcast will be all four of us podcasting about 1985's Back to the Future.
I will be the only one of the four of us who is seeing this for the first time.
Yes, indeed.
So look forward to me getting schooled by a lot of other people.
A lot of other people who have a lot of warm feelings about this movie and its sequels.
And then there will be me holding the pin to all your balloons. We know how this works.
We know exactly how this works. But we have the movies. I have the box set on Blu-ray, and there isn't really a way for us to do our traditional reading the back of the video case, except that I have found a scan of the VHS box of Back to the Future.
Okay.
From long ago. And so I'm going to show you this scan, and you can check out the box copy of this and see what you think.
Well, it's got a pull quote from Gene Shalit, so I'm in already. Steven Spielberg presents an irresistible comic fantasy that accelerates beyond the time barrier with wit, imagination, and infectious wide-eyed wonder. Michael J. Fox stars as Marty McFly, a typical American teenager of the 80s, accidentally sent back to 1955 in a plutonium-powered DeLorean time machine invented by slightly mad scientist Christopher Lloyd. During his often hysterical, always amazing trip back in time, Marty must make certain his teenage parents-to-be, Crispin Glover and Leah Thompson, meet and fall in love so he can get back to the future. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, this delightful comedy adventure will make everyone want to get back to the future over and over again. Okay. So I have a couple of thoughts that just pop into my head right off the top.
Sure.
Which is that, first of all, the last movie we watched in this series that started by explaining that Steven Spielberg directed it, that was The Goonies, and we know how that went.
That was, but Spielberg produced The Goonies.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Donner directed it.
Mm-hmm.
Spielberg produced Back to the Future. Robert Zemeckis directed it.
Right, so that was the second thing I was going to say, which is if we're talking about comedy, adventure, romps, directed by Robert Zemeckis, is there any interesting technology that was invented for this one?
Well, time travel, first of all.
Okay, well, yeah, there is that, yeah.
He invented actual time travel so they could, film the movie on location in the 1950s.
Yes, so this will also help me understand why there's like a toy car in our bathroom, right?
Yes, there are many little toy DeLoreans scattered around this apartment and some other Back to the Future stuff.
Okay, and I mean, it's
I've
about
got a
the
wee
movie.
hoverboard on a shelf.
It's about the movie and not alluding to your cocaine habit, right?
No, it's I'm a fan of the DeLorean time machine. I'm not a fan of John DeLorean, who almost did time because of that machine.
Okay.
Credit where it's due. I stole that from the Mad Magazine spoof of Back to the Future,
Okay, but I still
written by
like
Dick
it.
DeBartolo,
Well,
who is brilliant.
He is brilliant, yes.
Anyway, before we get too far into this movie, I think we should save it for the next section. So we are going to take a break. We are going to watch the movie. We are going to welcome some guests into Modern Technology headquarters here. And then we will all talk about 1985's Back to the Future. Hey, Gila.
Hey, Rob.
Are we back?
I think we're back.
And who's with us?
Yeah, there are people here.
There are a couple of people here. This place is twice as populated as it usually is when we do these.
It's so exciting.
Hello.
Hi.
That's Gabe.
That is Gabe.
I'm Jen. We're from the Dork Web.
The Dork Web.
Yes. And good friends of the Gilbert.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Very happy to be here. Thanks for having us on
Yeah,
the show.
thank you.
Thanks-
Thank
thanks
you
We're
for
so
so
much.
glad you
glad,
guys are
yeah.
here. This is going to be awesome.
Squee.
Absolutely. Would you explain for those unfamiliar what the Dork Web is all about?
Sure. So we actually just became familiar with what the Dork Web is as well. So it's fresh in my mind. Basically, we're based out of Bushwick, and we have decided it's hard to be an artist, to be a creative in New York City or wherever you live. We just happen to have that nice backdrop. And so we like to be a support for artists and creatives to know the real about making it here or just going for what you want to do. And whether it's for mental health awareness or just for actual support, for meeting, sharing resources, a lot of our resources being people, which is great. So we know a lot of people in the city, and we just kind of want to share good vibes, stuff like that. And fan art, of course.
Excellent. All good things.
Indeed.
And where can people get a look at this sort of stuff that you do?
Oh, so mostly at the
Instagram.
Dork Web on Instagram. And then we're working on website things. We're working on revamping our Twitter. So it's kind of the documentation of our journey. And because we haven't, quote unquote, made it yet, you can kind of tune in at any given time
see the
and just be like,
construction.
and just be like, hey, I can do that.
Awesome.
If they can do it, surely we can.
And both of you are here to talk with us about Back to the Future.
Future.
Oh,
future.
yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Back to the Future.
Yes, now Gila has not made known her entire response to this, but before we get into the movie, so what's your story about Back to the Future? How did you get into it at first?
So I was lucky enough to have a lot of older cousins babysit me. And just as our responsibility is to pass on the good old movies to the younger gen, I got to sit in on a lot of cool 80s movies, cool early 90s movies. And so Back to the Future was just always one. I was like, hey, her name is Jen. Spoiler, his girlfriend's name is Jen. And I was like, oh, cool, this is awesome. It's so, all the props and things. I didn't know what props were at the time. I was a little kid. But it definitely sparked something in me that would become a lifelong love for practical effects and storytelling and just kind of creative plot twists and whatnot.
Very cool. And Gabe, how about you?
So I didn't have the social upbringing awareness of the 80s and 90s movies. I don't honestly know
Sheltered.
specifically the first time I watched it. It may have been a rerun on Channel 4, if any of you are from Indiana, at like 3 in the afternoon on Sunday when I was about 10 or 11. And honestly, I hadn't seen it for years afterwards. Started watching with Jen recently, just being like, I know you've got the trilogy. I haven't seen
The
it for so long.
t-shirt.
Like,
The watch.
you're clearly a fan. I guess there's something going on here. And we sat down and we watched it, and I think almost I could appreciate it more that I have more of a cognizance of it now. Then, like, as a kid, it was cool, like the DeLorean, and there's flames, and it's science, and it's zany
It's
or whatever,
science.
and it's
Sure.
cool. But now, like, I really actually appreciate what the film does and what it's all about.
Excellent. And as for me, in 1985, I was a strapping 7-year-old boy and got taken to the movies by my mom. She always took my sister and I, my one sister that I had at the time, and I to the movies. And Back to the Future was one we saw, and it was a nearly empty theater. Like, it had just opened, I think. And because we used to go to this mall that had a multiplex in it that was near where we lived, and we would just find something there to see. And we saw Back to the Future, and it was great. And we went back to see it again the following weekend, I think, and the place was full.
Yes.
And then, like, we would get, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, I think, but my sister and I, we lived with our mom and grandfather, and then we would go see our dad on Sundays. And so in different combinations of children and adult, we went back to see this movie, I think, with mom, with grandpa, and with our dad. And altogether, we saw it 6 times.
Wow.
When it was released. I very quickly started drawing the car, like, constantly, and
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, it was just something that I really loved. And you know, whenever it was shown on TV, we would try and catch it. And when we finally got a home video machine, which back then was tape based, kids ask your parents.
Shoulder mounted. Yes.
Top-loading VCR clapped in there,
Yeah, we had this. This is one of those movies. We had it on VHS. I got it on DVD when it came out. I got different editions of the DVD just to like get more special features that were on them. And now we've just watched it on the Blu-rays. And so I was a major Back to the Future nut, like, since there was such a thing, basically. And yeah, there's lots of little toy DeLoreans scattered around this house. Some other stuff.
Lots of little toy DeLoreans scattered around this house.
I'm currently admiring.
Yeah, I also
DeLorean in the bathroom.
one year for Halloween here in New York, they have the Village Halloween Parade, which is just what it sounds like. It's down in the village, and it's a Halloween parade, and anyone in a costume can join in. And when I started getting into costumery, I would take particular joy in dressing as things that people would recognize, but they wouldn't necessarily have thought they would see in a costume. So there's a character in this movie who is an old lady giving out flyers about saving the clock tower.
Yeah. So I have spoiled this story for Gabe because I couldn't help myself.
Yes.
I was like, see that lady?
Yeah.
You're going to hear about her.
In my first public drag performance, I was the Save the Clock Tower lady. and if you're into it, I made flyers for that costume. I recreated the Save the Clock Tower flyer from the movie, but I did it with like a public domain photo that was going around. I wrote my own text because you can find copies easily of the actual props they used, which were just like, they were not meant to be actually read, so all the text was just a filler. And I actually wrote the stories. And so that I released that out on the Tumblr that I had at the time. So if you do a web search for Save the Clock Tower flyer and go to the result that's on robtfirefly.tumblr.com, that's mine, and it's full size. You can get it printed up and have a copy of the flyer that's more accurate to something that would exist in real life.
I do remember that being one of the first of many things that I was very impressed with Rob as a new colleague, because we worked together. So definitely that Save the Clock Tower document was one of the first things. We shared some prop, fandom. I have prop friends who also geek out over these things, and sharing the fact that you had actually put effort into taking out what was probably, and I have designer friends, was probably the whole lorem ipsum kind of like lazy dog jumped over or something filler text. So yeah, that definitely the attention to detail that you put into everything, and that now you as partners put into everything, is absolutely something we want to be a part of. Oh, hello, plane.
It's either a plane or a flying car.
Yeah, welcome to Queens.
No,
Spoiler alert! Yeah.
But yeah, so that was actually like I was always, even before I knew what the heck it was, I was really into movies, but also like the prop design, the production design, before I knew what those words meant. And I was always into making my own versions of imaginary things. And so yeah, that was one of my proudest achievements was that clock tower flyer, because like it took off and I put it out there for free, and people quickly started taking my version and selling it. So if you buy
But that is a compliment.
yeah, it kind of is. Even though I'm not getting any of the money,
No.
but you don't have to buy it. You can just download it and print it up yourself.
Oh.
But there were people giving it away in 2015, which was the 30th anniversary of this movie, and also the setting of the second, which we won't talk about yet. But there were events all over the place that popped up, and there was an event at the Gamble House, which was Doc Brown's house in the 1950s.
Oh my goodness!
It's this historic mansion out in California, and I got wind that people were giving my flyers out at that thing. So, it's just nice to kind of become part of the zeitgeist out there that's floating around this movie.
Oh, absolutely. And please give yourself the chance to see this photo of you in action handing out the flyers, because
Yes.
It is epic. It is absolutely epic.
we don't see all the different looks that Rob has, but wife Gila, of course,
Yes.
has exclusive access. But if you find the photo, the costume itself, the wig, the dress, the woman who shoves the coin can in your face.
The
it's-
stockings.
Oh,
I mean,
goodness.
just like every single detail of this whole thing. It was like when we first started dating, you had like your cosplay.com page that had like this and your Louis Tully, which was epic,
Oh yes.
and your Jean Frankel, and I think a couple of other things. And I remember sending the link of your Louis Tully to my brother, who's a huge Ghostbusters fan, and I was like, buddy, this is the guy I'm dating.
Oh,
And my brother was like,
origin.
I like him.
No.
Awesome. Well, now that we've talked about our Back to the Future stories, Gila, your Back to the Future story is you saw it a few hours
I saw it a
ago.
few hours ago. I stayed awake for most of it.
Well,
So
it is
fresh.
8 o'clock.
It
It's
is.
pretty late.
That's
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it was 5 o'clock earlier. We started watching this at like 4, and I just missed a chunk in the middle. I tried. God knows I tried, but it was a push. Yeah. So I was 4 when Back to the Future came out, and I was a girl, and I was 4, and I had a new baby brother, and we weren't going to the movies a lot. And it was just not something that ever crossed my radar. I knew it existed, and I just never saw it. So seeing it today was a lot.
I'm so curious.
Yeah.
I'm so curious.
It's not... Okay. So there is, first of all, the pressure of seeing your husband's favorite movie for the first time
It's one of them, definitely one of them.
and, like, not wanting to yuck his yum in any way. So that's thing number one.
We go through that with every
Amazing.
episode of this.
We really do. We really, really do. This is the danger of, like, not seeing things before. The other issue is that so much of this movie is so deeply embedded in the cultural zeitgeist of this moment that I was like, oh, this happened. Oh, this is happening now. Oh, I get this. Okay. And then rapey. And then it was over.
Yes.
Yeah, and we will definitely get into that when we get to that part.
It was like there was a thing they would do on Saturday Night Live every so often, and they still do this, is they would do like screen tests for a movie. Just let a bunch of people trot out really quick impressions. And they did one for Back to the Future. So they had, and at one point Taron Killam came out as Gilbert Gottfried reading for Biff. What are you looking at, butthead?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So the first time Biff said it in the movie, I was like, oh, okay, I know what this is. And, so like all these random quotes I knew of, but I'd never seen them in context. And then, so everything that happened, I was just like, okay, I see where this is going. I was like, oh, okay, Huey Lewis is the music teacher, and he's going to stop them and say, I don't like your music. Next. And then that's what happened. Oh man, so seeing it was just like, remember when we saw Rocketman? And I realize I'm just diving way in now, but
Okay.
When we saw Rocketman, they had that age makeup on Bryce Dallas Howard, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
seriously?
I did bring that up when we watched it. I was like, I never noticed because I really haven't watched it on a screen bigger but than maybe 20 inches
Right, so
or
sharp
something.
with that, too.
And
Right.
I would watch
Every
it on
detail.
VHS.
Yeah.
So when we saw it on DVD with this trilogy that I've just had, it was a gift. I don't think I really watched it on a screen bigger than that. And my God, the
Yeah.
craping on the neck and the SFX makeup, where I didn't realize, I didn't appreciate the fact that they aged them first because it's 30 years in the future or of the present. Whatever, I've gone cross-eyed. But yes, the craping on the neck
Yeah.
was just such a funny thing.
It was, and the eyes, like Leah Thompson's eyes, you could see
Yes.
the whole in
yeah,
it.
yeah.
meant-
In the prosthetics,
yeah.
The jowls
Yeah.
they gave.
Jowls.
Yeah,
Our French
yeah, we-
bulldog doesn't have that big of jowls.
Yeah, no, we were watching this on Blu-ray, so like in HD.
Oh, goodness.
Which and I hadn't watched it in HD yet because I just got these Blu-rays. So yeah, having grown up watching it on VHS and mostly on a VHS that was taped off of television before we got like the official
Oh, yeah.
version, and so
That's how they want you to see it. No,
yeah.
Most likely.
everything looks.
But it's like in a lot of movies now, when you rewatch them in HD, you could see like the lines where people's wig laces and like
Wow.
the just like little flaws in the process that weren't obvious when we were watching them on television for the past 30 or whatever
Oh,
years.
sure.
Yeah.
But now you can see them.
I remember them talking about the Friends. I remember them talking about Central Perk and the floor, how they put down the fake sheet sticker of hardwood floor, and you couldn't tell, but as soon as you start seeing everything in HD, just like you said, it's like, wow, that's a flat sticker on the floor.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking of a lot during this movie brought me back to the final, I think, episode of the Jim Henson Hour.
Ooh.
Right? So the Jim Henson Hour, for those who are unfamiliar, was a 1-hour series that Jim Henson did, and it was like the year before he died, basically. And they did an episode called The Secrets of the Muppets.
Oh yes.
And it was amazing. It still is
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
And it's great. They showed how they do the camera stuff. They showed how the puppets work. They showed everything. And at one point, Jim Henson is explaining to this dog Muppet character how they do the shots. And she's like, wait, am I matted into this shot? Because he was explaining to her how green screen worked. And then, wait, am I matted into this shot? I use that all the time now.
Yes.
And I almost yelled it at several different moments while we were watching this movie this afternoon, today.
So, I think we could maybe do our traditional run through the cast list of this movie.
Sure.
I think we'll start at the bottom here.
It's always a good plan.
So I'll read these names off, and any of you, if you have some thoughts about that person. Like starting at the bottom, this is the Wikipedia article for Back to the Future, the first one.
1985's Back to the Future.
1985's Back to the Future, and which starred Wendy Jo Sperber as Linda McFly.
That was Wendy Jo Sperber.
That was Wendy Jo Sperber.
Huh.
That was Marty's sister. And
Oh, wow.
and how, Gila, I know you know about it. How would you explain Wendy Jo Sperber to those unfamiliar?
Wendy Jo Sperber was kind of everywhere in the 80s and the early 90s, and she was like this Jewish-looking comedian woman, and now she's dead, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, she
Oh,
passed away
dear.
very young, sadly.
Yeah.
But
One of those things that's really like inspired a lot of advocacy and fundraising and things of that nature. But yeah, she was great.
yeah. Mark McClure is Dave McFly, who was Marty's brother.
Who looked a bit like Judge Reinhold.
I can see that.
Kind of that generic sort of tall, skinny 80s guy look.
I also
Yeah.
love how he had dark curly hair and looks nothing like Marty.
Yeah. None of them really look much like any.
No.
This family is non-heterogeneous.
Yeah, they wouldn't have
adoptees.
disappeared because they were all adopted.
That could be it. Yeah. Yeah.
James Tolkien is Gerald Strickland, the principal.
Who did not age.
To this day.
Seriously.
Yeah.
No, he still looks like that.
Yeah.
Strickland. I know we're going to get to this part, but I just couldn't. I think maybe because I have, helped raise my sisters and this and that, but just, I'm like, do you know what the meaning of slacker is? Do you know? I don't think this word means what you think it means. You keep using that word.
I don't
It's a Princess Bride crossover now.
Yes. It's always a Princess Bride crossover up in these parts.
Yeah. Claudia Wells is Jennifer Parker.
Woo!
Okay,
Jen.
I was trying to place her
Yes.
because she looked like everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, she was
looked
kind
like
of
everybody.
central
She does.
casting 80s teen girl. Mm-hmm. And I think she did only a couple of movies, but basically played that.
So when I say that a lot of the things of my having all these guy cousins, and then we were watching Back to the Future for the third time, and I was a little girl, my mother's maiden name is Park. And at the time, I had kind of just discovered that I am different and Asian, and my name sounds different, and it's Yoon. And I started signing my homework as Jen Park. And it led to a parent-teacher phone call because my teacher thought, just so I'm aware, is everything okay at home?
Oh, no.
She thought there was either a separation going on, or because my teacher had asked me point blank, who's Park? I'm like, it's my mom's name. I like my mom's name. And she said, okay, just gonna make a quick phone call.
I had a similar, not similar, this is just a funny story. I had a teacher, I turned in a quiz once. We had a sub. And she said, "Oh, Gail, thank you so much. Do you want to try writing your name again?"
Oh.
And I said, "Beg your pardon?" It's 8th grade. She said, "Well, Gail, I know you finished the quiz, but your name looks funny." And I said, "No." "Do you want to try
Sassy
writing it
since birth.
again?" And I was like, "Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean it's not my name."
Oh, sister.
It's like, look
you.
on the attendance list, and you will see.
Yes, for those who've just listened to this and don't read the text notes, how do you spell your name?
Gila.
It's quite clear,
Yes.
the pronunciation.
Yeah.
That's how you pronounce it?
That's,
Yes, just those letters in that
Right.
order.
It's how Yoon amazed me that people got confused. Be like, it's double O, like the moon, but with a Y. There's really no mistaking that sound in the middle for yawn or yin or something.
And what troubles did you have with your name?
Well, let me
Yeah,
tell
Dave.
you.
Tell
Yeah,
us
every
about
time
it.
I introduced myself as Gabe, it's always like, "Oh, nice to meet you, Dave," which is not a problem originally, but after the 10,000th time, you're just kind of like, "Oh,
It's part of the reason
it's
I
Gabe."
exclusively order on the Starbucks app now, because then they always get my name right.
Yeah.
It's...
There was, in an old workplace, there was a woman who kept flirting with me, but kept calling me Ron.
Oh no.
And that didn't increase my or cause me to reciprocate her feelings for me.
do I need to be worried?
No. Like, my name, which is a very
I
simple
do.
name, I think.
Yeah.
R-O-B. It's pretty straightforward.
We even talked about phonetic spelling of it before we met in person the first time.
Yes.
Well, that's a sign of the attention to detail you'll get from that partner. You chose well, Rob.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's Ron.
Shut up, Dave.
Now,
Got her.
So sorry.
now that we've completely confused anyone listening to this as their first episode of this podcast, now we'll get into the more featured cast here. Thomas F. Wilson as Biff Tannen.
So when I saw the name at the end, I thought that was the same kid who had been in, like, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Remember that guy?
I can see
His
that
name
look.
is something very similar. They don't look anything alike. But because, he had, like, the matinee idol and the bee stung lips and the whole thing. And
Love it.
oh, God, I had such a crush on him when I was 9. It was, okay.
But it's not Biff you had a crush on.
It is not Biff I
It is
had a
not
crush
this
on.
actor.
No,
It's
it's
some
not
other
this actor. It's some other actor.
I also enjoy that it happened to be that I was rewatching this specific season of House MD, which I have a history with for another time. But Biff is actually, the actor who plays Biff is in one of these episodes, and he plays a very loving, sensitive father who's taking care of his race car driving daughter. And she gets very sick, has to see House, and the whole time it was as if they said, as unbiff as you can be, do that.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those actors. He did like bit parts and stuff, but he had a recurring role on the sitcom Freaks and Geeks.
Yes.
Which,
I was like, why does he
yeah.
look so familiar?
he was
place it.
He was a gym teacher who ended up dating or marrying one of the kids' moms.
That's right. It's one of those shows that I kind of hop-skipped
Yeah.
over, but I do need to watch.
Kind of a dramedy. We have the box set if you
We
want
do
to
have the
borrow
box
it.
set.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I do. I love the Apatow kind of humor. I enjoy that troupe that arose.
Yeah, but he also, like, I followed his work, and he did a podcast for a while called Big Pop Fun, which was. It was a good listen, but it was on the Nerdist Network, which can go straight to hell. Screw Chris Hardwick. But
Wait, he's gone now, though. I mean,
yeah. But hell with him anyway.
Singled out Chris
hell with
Hardwick?
him. That's the one. No, hell with him definitely. But like, a friend of mine works for Nerdist now. Let's be like her.
Okay. Well, Chris Hardwick was still there when he was working on it, so maybe
that's
broken
fair.
clock, right twice a day. Hire Tom Wilson, but no, he's also like a pop artist, and I had a T-shirt he made for a while. I no longer have that T-shirt, but like he made this pop art version of himself on a T-shirt that said "Love" underneath, and it was kind of cool. But
Oh, pop art.
Yeah,
As
pop
in the
art.
style. I
Yeah.
thought as in like
The Funko
Hasselhoff
Pops?
is a pop star in Germany.
Oh.
Pop star. I was like, wow.
No,
this
though
is-
he does,
Where's the album?
he has albums.
Spotify.
Biff sings.
SoundCloud.
No, he does have albums because
Really?
he plays the ukulele, and he's been a stand-up and a guitar playing stand-up, and it's
This visual right now.
this is
oh
this
my
is the
gosh.
correct response. No, this is the correct response.
Oh my God, no!
But the thing about him too is like, after this movie came out, he got so known as Biff,
Aw.
and it kind of screwed with his career and everything else, and like everyone stops him in the street and goes, "Hey, butthead," and like,
Aw.
and he was kind of over it. He also has a question song, which if you search for Biff's question song on YouTube, it's something that he would perform at stand-up and stuff. And what it is a song about like all the same questions that he's tired of answering from Back to the Future fans. And so he's like, I'll just give him this song, and so it's got all my answers in it. And like, it's really jolly
brilliant.
and brilliant. And like, if this were not a Creative Commons podcast, I would put it in the audio file here. But I will just urge you, and I'll find a link and put it in the show notes.
Oh
Listen
my gosh,
to Biff's
I adore
question
him
song.
now. I mean,
And-
I haven't even heard it.
Yeah.
But the concept is
No,
brilliant.
I'll remind me to play it for you after this. But yeah, it's great, and he's a good follow on Twitter and stuff. Yeah, so Tom Wilson as Biff Tannen. Now, Crispin Glover as George McFly.
Adore.
Yikes.
Yikes! Why'd you
Very
say
divided.
Because
yikes?
Crispin Glover just in general is just... I'm sorry, I know I can't explain that face.
We kind of heard it through the through the microphone.
Okay,
But-
it's...
I think I've seen our cat do that.
Yeah.
when you mentioned Crispin Glover, actually, like
It's something I speaking of watching it as an adult, with these kind of adult eyes, we really were watching them act, and it was like, wow, this is stage play level. I want to emote to the people in the cheap seats in the back, way, way, way in the back, because everything Glover was doing was like, wow. As a kid, it was just, that's acting. And then now I'm like, whoa. Theater guy?
Acting.
Yes, there's acting and then there's
Yeah.
acting.
yeah, I don't think
very
subtlety
master
was
thespian. Yeah.
subtlety was not in Crispin's on his resume. I don't think. But,
It's not on his resume, but it's also like nowhere to be found in the script. That's true.
Yeah.
I've got the feelings, which we will discuss when we talk about the plot. But
Yes.
oh my God.
Although
Okay.
I did, when I look at him now, and you're not cringing because you're a kid and you don't think, oh, nerd, just by the way that guy's mannerisms and the way he's walking and behaving, nerd. He really is a handsome guy.
He's got a
He's
pretty hip
like
cut, too.
Yeah.
cool
Like, he'd fit
undercut,
right in
and like
Bushwick.
right now he's got a very kind of, he would be a model. It's kind of one of those things. Oh, this is horrible. It's kind of one of those things like, oh, before he opened his mouth. Yeah, he's a handsome guy. I'm like, I've seen a still photo of him. I'm like, you are quite a handsome man.
Yeah. well,
So him choosing to kind of take on these kind of awkward roles, I'm like, good for you.
The thing about this movie, like they used the same actor, which not every production like this would do, but they used the same actor to play teenage and middle-aged versions of the characters, and so they were actually the younger age, but like then they put on a bunch of prosthetic makeup and play their older selves, their older versions. And when Crispin is playing young George McFly, he's kind of like reasonable and a bit normal. And it's like he just turns it up to 11 when he's 47-year-old George McFly, and I get like you're watching, you forget you're watching a bunch of like, you know, very young adults playing people their parents' age.
Yes.
And so that kind of accounts for some of it, but also George McFly as an adult is just a friggin' weird character.
Yeah. I mean,
like everything he was doing as an actor, every choice he was making was kind of out
I
there.
really wonder if he thought about it in a way that's like, okay, I'm older. I've been beaten up for 30 years now by this guy. My soul is broken, and this is me now.
Yeah.
I'm like, did he go that deep? Did he go that deep?
Or is he just concerned that like the prosthetics were going to obscure his choices, so he had to make them bigger?
Yeah. Well, going up from there, Leah Thompson as Lorraine Baines McFly.
Caroline in the City. That's all I'm going to say. I really loved that show when I was a kid.
We were talking recently about when she did a guest spot on the second season of Friends episode called The One with the Baby on the Bus.
I don't remember that.
Chandler and Joey are babysitting baby Ben, and they're flirting with women and forget him when they get off the bus.
Oh my gosh. I don't remember this. Baby Ben as in the love child.
As in Ross's...
Right, lesbian
Ross's
ex-wife.
Yes. Yeah, and she's there for a couple minutes, and then she asked Chandler and Joey what adoption agency they had used, and they were like, wait, you think we're gay? We're not gay.
Oh, cue
was-
laughter.
Exactly.
But was she playing Caroline in the City?
She may have been,
Like,
it might
was-
have been a must-see
Oh,
TV
wow.
crossover type
Yeah.
situation.
There's a connection.
Yeah. Well, Leah Thompson, I thought she was very cute as the younger version in this movie. Like, as a younger boy, that you know, I had feelings, but I think more of my Leah Thompson feelings came from Howard the Duck when she was a punk musician.
That will have to be rewatched for sure.
Yes,
I can't even.
but
Some kind of wonderful.
not really on my radar at that point. At least not as much
I'm
as Back to the
shocked.
Future and Howard the Duck.
Shocked.
She really was that kind of lusting, heaving, young, hormonal thing. Oh my gosh, every scene I'm like, wow, look at you. Breathing, gazing, leaning on things,
Yeah.
grabbing a boy you don't know.
Yeah, look at you, you horn dog. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just-
I mean, we did throw around the hashtag thirsty word yesterday.
Yes,
legit.
yes. Lorraine was a very thirsty character.
She really was.
There was like mentioning Biff and then Lorraine. I remember one bad review of Back to the Future that I had. I used to have this really thick book that was like the pages were like junk quality. It was like the quality of a phone book, but it was a book that I bought in the bookstore that was just like this huge compendium of movies with these short, like one little paragraph reviews for each one. And before the internet, this was like a great resource to have in your house. And the one for Back to the Future was not a great review. The reviewer just said like it relied too much on like the cool hip kid of today having his victory over the dumb bullies and bunnies of the past. And you know, dumb bully and dumb bunny are kind of kind of encapsulate the characters of Biff and Lorraine there.
Yeah. Okay, since we're getting to Leah Thompson on the cast list, I'm assuming that some of the people who had smaller roles are not going to get mentioned.
No, but we can mention them. Who would you like to mention?
I mean, Billy Zane.
Billy Zane.
yeah.
Was that his name in the credits?
Billy Zane as one of Biff's goons.
Oh, yeah.
Billy Zane. Jason Hervey.
Jason Hervey was one of Lorraine's little brothers, the one with the Davy Crockett raccoon
That's right.
cap.
Yeah.
Better known as the older brother in the
Wayne.
Wonder Years.
Yes.
Wayne.
Can we talk about the redhead at the end who cuts into the dance?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe the most evil character in cinema history.
Oh God, I had nightmares about that guy.
Do we know his name? Because I'd like to find that man. Congratulate.
I bet he's signing autographs at Chiller Theater or something.
Very true.
Like this is one of those things like Star Wars. Like if you were the third head from the left in like a crowd scene, you could probably get a nice autograph table out of the deal.
Sam Rockwell.
Amazing.
The Sam Rockwell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that guy was kind of great. Yeah,
I'm so it was like a face palm, right? I'm so glad he got face palmed down to the floor.
yeah. I mean, epic facepalm of the like maybe drunk cackling ginger kid.
See, that actually, I can believe it now because it's so unbelievable. Why would this guy just cut in and crap on the nerd and take this girl against her will? But if he was drunk, that might be it. Okay.
I mean,
Well, it was also the 50s. I mean, it was a movie made in the 80s about the 50s, so the gender politics are going to be weird either way.
it was rose-colored history glasses, but
Absolutely.
Also just the idea of George McFly dancing with Lorraine Baines is going to upend the entire social order of everything. And, this must not stand.
Oh,
This must not stand.
And they didn't
we
have
will get to that.
They didn't have a
And he may have been drunk.
yes.
yes. And they didn't have nice representation like Ron Weasley for the gingers. So this guy just
Yeah. All right. Christopher Lloyd as Dr. Emmett Doc Brown.
Can I share my embarrassment for a moment?
Please.
I thought for the longest time that Christopher Lloyd was the very same producer of The Golden Girls. And I was like, I love him so much more. But alas, he is not the one.
That's right.
Sorry, Golden
I remember
Girls
looking
fans.
Another Hollywood illusion shattered. It's
No.
just-
We call that movie magic, I think.
Yeah. For sure what that is.
but Christopher Lloyd, though. Like,
Christopher Lloyd.
yeah.
Can we just talk about how he is probably the stuff of nightmares for so many of our
Judge. Yes.
oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? So many of our contemporaries. To be the judge.
Judge Doom.
Judge Doom.
Judge Doom.
To be Doc Brown, which, I'm sorry, John Mulaney was 100% correct.
I'm so glad you brought
I don't
this
know
up.
about that. I'm going to let you finish, but I might have something to contest.
I mean, it's weird. It's weird that Marty knows where to find the key to this dude's house and he's just there. It's weird. How do they know each other? We don't know. But also when he was like this, when the principal was like this so-called Doc Brown, I was like, oh, Shades of Ghostbusters. I think I actually wrote that down in my little book. And then I stopped taking notes and then I fell asleep and then I woke up.
Cool story, bro.
Thanks. Then I found $20. I just,
Then we all had ice cream.
and then we all had ice cream. And then I wet my pants. Ultimately, it is Christopher Lloyd. Bold choices in the 1980s.
Well,
Can I speak to the John Mulaney?
By all means.
So
okay.
we're
First, I think you gotta explain the John Mulaney thing for those who might not have heard.
okay. So basically, and maybe Jen can tell, or anyone can tell this better than I. But basically, John Mulaney is making a joke about
The pitch.
so many things in Back to the Future, the pitch, yeah. And one of the punches is like, how does this old crazy scientist know this high school kid? There's no connection. They never explain it. You should see a stand up. Not gonna ruin the joke, but that's
the whole
the gist.
bit is just
The whole
basically
bit
like,
is
I
genius.
wonder
It's a
what
great
this
bit.
writer's table
Yeah.
sounded like. Like these
Yeah.
guys pitching to the execs and going, well, how does this scientist know this high school child? And it's like, they never explain it. That's
But
what's funny.
I posit that they do explain it. It's just so subtle that
Actually,
you don't
yeah.
realize it, because when they're in the past,
Yeah.
he says, "Find me in the future, or I'll find you in the future." And I think because he went back to the past,
Yeah.
met old Doc Brown. Doc Brown now knows in 30 years I need to find Marty McFly. Finds him, becomes friends with him because he knows he's a pivotal character. I need to help this guy. He'll help me.
Yeah.
And that's how they know each other.
Well,
so
last
it's
night,
a grandfather paradox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last night that came about where he's like, "Oh, did you just hear that line?" And it was when Christopher Lloyd was like, "Yeah, it's going to be really hard to wait 30 years to tell you everything that's happened in the last couple of days." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I've never thought of it that way."
The other question that I have is, everyone else was wearing really visible aging makeup, and Christopher Lloyd not so much, and his hair was not really a different color in 1955 than it was to 1985. So are we to infer some sort of weird, like, Tuck Everlasting type shit is going on?
Whoa. Well, they did age him up for 1985, but he was already pretty craggy. He was Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
Go back and watch Taxi and look at Reverend Jim.
This is what I'm
He's a
saying.
craggy.
He's a craggy guy.
dude.
Yeah,
But
no,
they,
for sure.
They changed his hair up. It was like blonder in the past
It was,
and
yeah,
shorter.
it was.
We did
And-
take note of one hug. There was the hug right before,
Yeah.
everything.
And also, you're talking about the craping on like his chin.
Oh, my goodness.
Which when he's showing Marty the car at first, that's where you could really see that, especially in HD. But yeah, they did age him up a bit for the 80s. But yeah, he was already kind of craggy. But
Yeah,
the thing-
apparently no good moisturizers in the 80s.
Yeah. No.
Everyone neglected their necks. Yeah.
Just Vaseline and Crisco.
Crisco, yes.
I don't think men were allowed to moisturize yet in the 80s. I think,
They
It wasn't
hadn't
acceptable.
invented like the
Yeah.
man stuff.
They didn't know how to make the gray bottles.
yes.
Yeah,
with the scrubber on the end.
exactly.
But Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, easily my favorite character in these movies. Like, we'll get to Michael J. Fox and Marty, who I think for most people was kind of, or for most, kids watching this movie, ends up being like the aspirational character. I wish that stuff would happen to me. I always wanted to be Doc.
Oh, wow.
And
Thank you for not filling this entire house with clocks.
well, we have them on our phones now. And it's much easier.
No, that is true. But
But no, Doc was awesome. I loved how he acted the part. Just like every like wild-eyed expression and like his screams of terror, and just that is an iconic character. And Doc's awesome. Love Doc.
I think I would agree with you, though. When I think of Back to the Future, I immediately think of Doc. I think he stands out the most in my mind, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the character, like Marty, is the main character, whatever. But Christopher Lloyd's performance was just overshadowing, I think, personally.
Yeah. Speaking of theatrical acting, it just really was, carrying the whole thing.
Yeah. And Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly.
holy shit.
Now, is that a good holy shit or a bad one?
Or just a Marty McFly. Holy shit. Yeah. So the other reason that I'm surprised I never begged to see Back to the Future as a child is because I was so emphatically in love with Alex P. Keaton. Not Michael J. Fox. Alex P. Keaton. I was like 4 and didn't understand politics at the time. And my grandfather said, Gila, Alex is a jerk. And I said, no, he's not. I burst into tears and it was awful. So I'm very surprised that I didn't push to see this movie with Alex P. Keaton.
So for those unfamiliar who have never seen Family Ties, how would you explain Alex P. Keaton?
Alex P. Keaton is a Reagan Republican being raised by hippies.
Oh, currently.
Which was like the central conflict in the sitcom Family
Yes,
Ties.
because how did these two hippies pop out this supply side economics
Right.
child who wears sweater vests?
Yeah.
Intergenerational conflict. Yeah.
But in this movie, where he is not young Republican Michael J. Fox, he's sort of blue jeans rock and roll Michael J. Fox, kind of at the height of his powers.
Where are we in California? I mean, I know we're in Hill Valley, but are we in Northern California? Are we in Southern
I
California?
got like a northern middle vibe.
Yeah, kind of the sense that I got, but I wasn't sure if we had ever that was clarified one way or the other.
I don't think they specifically address the geography of where it's at. It's just kind of like ambiguous. So this is a California town.
Yeah, because I kind of got like a sort of insouciant Northern California kind of
Yeah, I agree with you.
laid kickback kind of thing.
Which is so funny because we even looked at the town square and I was like, hey, we just went to Indiana to visit your family.
In my
It looks like
hometown,
Indiana.
it looks exactly
I'm
like
like,
that.
no, Midwest. It's Midwest.
It reminded me a little bit of your hometown,
Ugh.
Tell us what you really think, Rob.
with the notable exception that I don't think that there is an adult bookshop and a porn theater on the main drag in
No.
your hometown.
Oh, the 80s were a wild time.
that
They
they,
really
were,
were.
yeah.
Just it was all the cocaine, but no, it like Hill Valley, like it was set up as the same kind of way as like a lot of places, I think, all over America. Like it was sort of a very generic Hollywood version of California.
It was a
like,
backlot.
I mean, it was a backlot, but it was also, I think, based on what a lot of people around the country who'd never seen California just thought what it must be like, that and surfboards.
So interesting.
But
Just a beach. Just
But yeah, and it was very obviously like, and so they could have that contrast with the past and the present was like one of these little towns that had sprung up with like sort of suburbia, and there were things very distant from each other, and there was like farmland and like long stretches of just open highway with maybe a housing development on the side of it. But like in the 80s, you can see like everything's spread out and it's all filled up with like basically a crappy neighborhood or like a standard middle suburban neighborhood, and they have the mall out and like 2 miles away from town, but that's where everything ends up. And yeah, I think it was a very sort of generic suburbia, like 80s peak suburbia thing, I think.
Did you know there's a sandwich shop in Wisconsin called Suburbia?
Suburbia.
Suburbia with a
gosh.
P. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
True story.
Let's
Yeah, it
take
comes
this show
from-
on the road.
Yes.
We're going to Wisconsin. So.
But yeah, so Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly.
Big crush.
Yeah.
Oh, big crush. I
Thank-
just got the Family Ties reference. Oh my gosh. and then he went into Spin City. And actually, I was looking for a new show to watch on my own because Gabe and I are on completely polar opposite sleep schedules. So I was like, I want something easy. Oh, look, there's Kiefer Sutherland. I'm going to watch Designated Survivor. Come to find out, in the, I believe, second season, Michael J. Fox comes in as a high-powered, lawyer, and yeah, I mean, you can see the effects. It's a little rough to watch, but
Yeah.
and then watching him back as a 17-year-old, quote unquote.
Do you have feelings about Doc Hollywood? Have we not seen Doc Hollywood?
Oh,
I have seen Doc
It's been
Hollywood.
a very long time.
It's on the shelf.
It's on the shelf.
It's on the
yes.
shelf.
You might leave here with an armload of stuff you're borrowing, which
Borrowing.
yes. But the family ties thing behind this movie, like, I don't know if you know this, Gila, but it's like well known among movie dorks and Back to the Future dorks, is Michael J. Fox was not the first Marty McFly.
Right, I knew that.
They started making the movie with Eric Stoltz in the role.
Wow.
And they just weren't getting what they wanted out of Eric Stoltz, and so I think they went to Michael J. Fox first, and like they wouldn't let him off Family Ties enough to do it, and so they went with Eric Stoltz, and it just wasn't happening. So they went back and basically scheduled everything as much as possible around around his Family Ties obligation, which meant that dude was basically working on that in the daytime and working on Back to the Future at night, and just like pulling these weird long double shifts and ending up really sleep deprived, which I think might have contributed to his performance of like just being looking befuddled all the time and like what the fuck's going on around me. Just
That was a lot of it, though. It was just like,
a lot of the Marty McFly stuff is just like reacting in terrified ways to like,
this is a thing that's happening. And like, even if that was necessarily the right reaction you'd expect in the moment or not, like, my mom's trying to feel me up. That's definitely a weird moment, but also just like, oh, okay, I'm going to play the guitar guitar at the school dance and invent rock and
Completely
roll.
different voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Michael J. Fox's Marty. And yeah, a lot of my contemporaries, my because this was one of those movies that in school every kid had seen it, and most of the kids thought that Marty was awesome and they wanted to be Marty. I wanted to be Doc. That was my dude.
So we can also say that by extension, this movie is responsible for toxic fandom.
A toxic.
A toxic fandom.
Yes, I'm not saying that we can lay the blame for toxic fandom exclusively at the feet of Rick and Morty, but
And what a delicious toxic fandom it is.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's like
it's that nugget sauce, right?
Yeah, I mean, I try, like, Rick and Morty is something that I enjoyed. I'm not caught up on it now. I slowly will, but it's one of those things that, like, I just had to back off from the entire fandom because, like, so many people involved in it are assholes and are taking the show as, like, permission to be an asshole. And
I actually didn't realize that was a question that I would have had for you because of the,
yeah, Rick and Morty.
the resemblances.
Yeah, for those unfamiliar, Rick and Morty started as a very not safe for work Back to the Future parody that eventually got reworked and reworked and reworked until it was Rick and Morty. So
It started out as Doc and Marty, and then it morphed into Rick and Morty.
yeah,
wow.
to make it lawyer proof.
To make it lawyer proof. It definitely is one of those things that Gabe had seen a few episodes, if not a full season, and I had yet to watch my first, but where Rob and I used to work together, there was an extreme fandom. We're talking like stickers and merch and notebooks and backpacks.
Lined up
and
at
things.
McDonald's to get the Szechuan
Absolutely,
sauce.
the Szechuan sauce. So it's one of those shows I have to be in the right mood.
Yeah, me too.
Otherwise, I am weirdly angry at it.
I can watch one episode at a time, and then I need a lot of time to recover.
Yeah, I think
It's
maybe
been
it was
like a year now.
Yeah, I think I stopped trying to get you to watch along with me and just like
You did, and I'm willing to, try it again in small doses.
The dosages matter.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, shall we get into the plot of this pretty long movie? It's like
Such as it was, let's do it.
2.5, such as it was.
And joining us is John Mulaney. No.
The plot from the Wikipedia article for Back to the Future. In 1985, Hill Valley, California, Marty McFly visits the home and lab of his friend, Dr. Emmett Doc Brown, an eccentric local scientist.
Terrorists are after Doc Brown at the beginning of the movie, right?
Yes.
And this high school-aged boy goes to his house, which Doc assumably is avoiding because of the terrorists. Doesn't warn him whatsoever of the danger that could be lurking, and just lets him maybe die at the hand of terrorism.
Yeah,
Also,
didn't connect that.
doesn't warn him about the box of plutonium.
Right.
In the middle
Like,
of the
so
living
many
room,
dangers.
Right?
yeah.
That's a skateboard, yeah.
It's, oof.
A little negligent. That's
He
Just
left
have to say
he left the machine running that feeds his dog. He's got
Yeah.
this robot arm, and the opening shot of the film, it's pretty iconic. It's just panning across clocks and clocks and clocks, and then
A
it
little
starts
foreshadowing.
a little foreshadowing with like a Harold Lloyd clock with the guy hanging off the hands. Then you start seeing these gadgets. Like there's a machine that turns the TV on at a certain time, and that wasn't something that you could walk into any
at the time, yeah.
CVS and buy the thing to do in 1985. And then there's this robot arm that like takes a can of dog food, brings it over to a can opener. The can opener opens the can. Then the robot arm hovers it over the dog food bowl and pours it in. But like there's this mountain of rancid dog food in the thing
right, so there's,
because
like-
they've been away for a while.
There's the rancid dog food. There's the burnt toast.
Yeah, the burnt toast,
burnt
toaster.
constantly is going in and out of the
Yeah.
toaster.
The missing coffee pot.
Yeah, in the Mr. Coffee.
So I actually wrote down, my first note was, are we to infer from this that Doc is kind of a fuck up? Because everything is just a little bit off.
Yeah, and then Marty comes in and starts using the massive amplifier, which of course explodes because rock and roll.
That was the other thing about this movie, though. Mm-hmm. There were no repercussions for anything. It was like a big cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It was.
Like, Doc got this plutonium.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And when we get to the terror scene, there are things to be said about all of that. But
Yeah. plutonium, you're not fooling.
Yeah, you see a news report on the TV about the missing plutonium, and then
right.
you see that the box is under some crap in Doc's lab. Though missing for several days, Doc calls the lab and asks Marty to pick up some equipment for a special experiment later that night.
Some equipment being the camcorder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he says he just tells him, I'll need your assistance, and then
1 in the
later he
morning.
calls Marty and tells him, I forgot my camcorder, pick it up for me.
Right, okay.
So from this,
Adult says, teenager, meet me in the shopping mall parking lot at 1:15 in the morning. And everyone's just kind of like, okay,
Yeah, cool.
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, there is no good reason for that to happen, but like every 80s kid wanted a mad scientist friend.
It did seem like it wasn't the first time he asked him to meet him at a weird hour to help him with something.
Yeah, and I guess, the first time
all-
you don't wind up like dismembered, then you assume you're fine, like it's a blanket, okay? But
It all seems like a pretty routine thing. Like Marty just knows Doc and like stops off at his place to play with his stuff and helps him with experiments. And plays with his dog because he calls the dog when he goes in. Yeah,
Einie.
Einstein, played by another actor we didn't talk about, Freddie. May he rest. He or she, who knows. At school, Marty meets his girlfriend, Jennifer Parker, and after being berated by the principal and failing his audition for the Battle of the Bands, he confides in Jennifer that he fears that he will become like his parents despite his ambitions.
Hold on. Audition. So Huey Lewis.
Yes,
So Marty and his band, the Pinheads.
the Pinheads.
Pinhead.
The Pinheads. They start playing "The Power of Love" by Huey Lewis in the news, and thank God they didn't try singing. And Huey Lewis is like, "Nope, sorry."
Yeah, Huey Lewis like dressed up in a stodgy like plaid suit. And there's a couple other teachers and a kid sitting next to him. And apparently they're the judges for this thing. No, they're all completely nonplussed by the performance. Did you notice the kid sitting on Huey's right?
I noticed there was a kid sitting on Huey's right, but I didn't get too close.
I forget the actor's name, but he was the snotty yuppie kid from the Goonies.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
The one who gets exploded on the toilet.
Yeah. While reading Guns and Ammo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You Goody.
that's the one. That's the one.
I didn't like
He doesn't.
that one either.
He doesn't have a line in that one, but in this one, but he just sort of scowls and gives a shit-smelling face to Marty's music.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a nice little in joke that Huey Lewis was a music teacher who didn't like that Huey Lewis song. At home, Marty's cowardly father George is bullied by his supervisor Biff Tannen, while his mother Lorraine is an overweight, depressed alcoholic.
Oh my God. It says this in the description.
They're not
Yes.
holding back any
Yeah,
punches.
Wikipedians,
They're not
man.
pulling the
She's
punches.
not overweight. Oh my gosh.
Lorraine recalls how she met George when her father hit him with his car, and she subsequently nursed him back to health. This skips over the clock tower lady.
It does skip over the clock tower lady.
So yeah, after they, and I'm going to bring it back to the clock tower lady. After the Battle of the Bands, they leave school, and Marty's just talking about how he's never going to get a chance to play in front of everybody. And Jennifer tells him, "But this tape of yours is really good. You got to send it into the record company." And he starts with, "What if they don't like it? I don't think I could take that kind of rejection." And they see a truck that Marty likes because it's the '80s, and you're defined by the stuff you have. Yeah, a lot of the classism stuff in this movie doesn't really age well.
Yeah.
Age like milk. But
So much. So much.
Although the kind of self-esteem motivational stuff is now quite in the talks. So, yeah, definitely a point of conversation. I really like the whole, if you set your mind to something, you can accomplish anything.
which is a nice little what's the word I'm looking for? Platitude.
Motto.
Yeah. But during this, like,
Aphorism.
Marty and Jennifer get a can of change shaken in their face by this old lady who's
As they're
collecting
about to
money.
kiss. Yes.
As they're about to kiss. She's collecting money for the Save the Clock Tower Fund because they're standing in front of this clock tower in the town square. And 30 years ago, lightning struck that clock tower, and the clock hasn't run since. We at the Hill Valley Preservation Society believe it should be preserved exactly the way it is as part of our history and heritage.
Sweet MacGuffin.
It was
Batman.
amazing.
Yeah.
No script in front of him, by the
No.
way.
Yeah.
This was also, like, this is a movie that I can quote front to back. Like, I have it memorized. And so I was totally tucking it back when we were watching Gila, so you wouldn't get distracted from the actual movie by me just mouthing along with it.
Oh, that's
But,
why I think it was a smart idea for us not all to be in one room, because the compulsion, is that
Yes.
the word? The compulsion,
compulsion.
to linorama this movie.
Yeah, it was like the first time we watched Ghostbusters
gosh.
together.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even need to have the video on.
I think I just had to be stuffing chips in my mouth, so I didn't say anything.
Well, honey, you should have done it though. Like the part when I was sleeping, that probably would have woke me back up.
Oh, he did it. You were just that deep into sleep.
Clearly.
Got
yeah.
the wig out.
Yeah.
Yes.
the way we sit, it's hard for me to see if you're awake or asleep. So that's why every so often I like nudge you and like, you okay? But
I'm fine.
But no, so he gives her a quarter or something, and she gives him a flyer that says "Save the Clock Tower," and it's the photo of or the photocopy of this old news article about the clock being struck by lightning in 1955.
Yeah,
Crucial.
And as we say,
Yes.
holy
Yes,
MacGuffin,
super
Batman.
crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So he takes the flyer. Jennifer's dad shows up to pick her up, and he goes, "I'll call you tonight." And she goes, "I'll be at my grandma's. Let me give you the number," and writes it on the back of the clock tower flyer. So he hangs on to that.
I do really love all the little subtle things we noticed last night as adults in relationships. Little things, little devices that they use to illustrate the kind of relationship that Marty and Jen have. It's like super cute, but kind of subtle, where he rubbernecks to see a hot girl walk by in very weird, not hanging flatteringly aerobics gear.
Like jazzercise.
Yeah,
kind
I
of.
was like,
80s
is that a
aerobics
middle-aged
gear, yeah.
woman with frumpy clothes? But he rubbernecks, and she just kind of gently, like, oh, boys will be boys kind of thing, brings his face back to her to finish the conversation because she's talking here. Yeah, and it was funny because Gabe and I said, like, wait, okay, so is it a new relationship? They've been dating for a while? Are they just friends? They haven't had that first kiss yet? Or kissing is, like, not a regular
It seemed like
thing
such
yet?
a big deal when they were about to
when
kiss.
they were about to kiss. And I was like,
But
oh,
then
this is cute.
she writes that she loves him, and I'm like, wait, like,
And that's the other thing where I was like, what I love thinking now is that he would not have kept that flyer if not for the fact that she wrote, I love you, with the number of the grandmother's cabin or wherever she's saying. I thought that was adorable. So he's this kind of scamp. You know, he just can't help himself. It's too charming.
Yeah.
Scamp is the word.
So Scamp
sure,
is.
Scampy.
Yeah.
He's a slacker. Just like his father.
He's a scampy slacker.
Sounds like an Olive Garden special. Yeah. Scampy slacker. Bottomless scamp.
Bottomless scampy slacker. With breadsticks and salad.
So someone listening to this, create the recipe for bottomless scampy slacker, and we will feature it on the website or something.
We'll make it.
And then we have to make it.
We'll
Yeah.
make it.
Yes, watches@modern.technology is our email address, which I've just fixed. It wasn't working for a while,
But it is now.
it is now. But yes, then he goes back, and his father is bullied by Biff, and watching now with the eyes that that I'm cognizant this is a couple of young adults playing middle-aged men, like bickering about work reports and stuff after one totaled the other's car. Yeah, you can see they're both kind of just like, how do you play an adult? I guess
Yeah.
turn it up to 11.
Interesting.
And
Yeah. But also
Be
the
twitchier.
Twitchier, and I need a new beer because my old one spilled when the car accident
Yeah.
happened.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
And that was like 1985. So that was the beginning of like the whole drunk driving is evil
Yeah.
era. Like
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the easiest way to paint Biff as
yeah, it was a nice bit of shorthand.
And they could show that in every after school special.
was to say, so like he gave the guy a noogie, and he was poking him in the face, and also he was driving while he was drinking, and it was like what, a year later that the Matthew Perry on Growing Pains thing happened.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think so. And that was the thing too, is like, you know, you could paint him as an asshole with the fact that he was drunk driving, but also like it was still gentle enough in 1985 where it was just like, oh, I spilled beer all over me in the car, you know, cue laugh track if it were a sitcom.
Right.
Like it wasn't like a thing to be horrified by. It was
Right.
just, oh, this jerk.
We did notice that the Miller High Life can has not changed much.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, look at that champagne of beers right there.
You know.
Marty meets Doc at a parking lot by a shopping mall at 1:16 a.m. on October 26th. Doc unveils a time machine built from a modified DeLorean and powered by plutonium obtained from Libyan terrorists with the promise of building a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, I do love Marty's reaction when he says, out of a DeLorean? Like it's such a... I don't know. I don't have context for that car in that time.
I will
was
give you
it
that
so...
context.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Yes,
It was. You've seen The Wedding Singer?
Yes.
Okay. Remember Glenn had one?
Yes. Okay. All right.
That's all you need to
That's
know.
all I need. Yeah. In one sentence, Gila.
I mean, the thing... And,
Managed to paint that picture.
Yeah, there
for
you go.
me.
There you go.
The funny thing about DeLoreans is, like, DeLoreans in 1985, like, the DMC-12, which is the technical model name for that car, came out in 81, I think, off the top of my head, but, like, it very quickly spiraled and collapsed with the whole DeLorean empire when John DeLorean got in trouble, which is... He was there.
Oh, no.
There was stuff involving like suitcases full of drug money and
Whoa.
like basically all those things that executives weren't allowed to get caught doing in the 80s. He did.
all of them.
Yeah, he did all of
Oh,
them.
dear.
Some of them simultaneously.
And if only you
And-
could travel back to the future. And
Oh my gosh.
But like the DeLorean as a thing was it was cool looking, but apparently car people all generally agree that it was really not a good car mechanically.
Huh.
Because
Going
like
to the grocery store, you hit.
well it was like this whole series of like downgrades that were made during the production process. Like it was designed to be a much better car than they ended up making it because they just put in cheaper parts and like cut corners. And so like it looks cool, but it kind of runs like shit. And like so it was kind of like the DeLoreans. There were not many of them made, and so it was widely kind of a joke. Like a DeLorean was basically a stainless steel losermobile. It was like the yuppies and the rich fucks had it, but like
By the time the film came out, this was the general public.
By the time the film came out, it was a rare car that you might see once in a very blue moon, with somebody very privileged behind the wheel. But it also, among people that actually cared about cars, they didn't have one.
Wow.
Is it that deep as to why the DeLorean doesn't work? Like at the end of the movie?
Oh.
I think
Because
it
it's like
might
a
be.
shit car.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that was intentional. But like apparently they got a nice letter from John DeLorean after this movie came out. He's like, thank you for like making the DeLorean part of this movie, and like it's great to know my legacy is like involved in this. But like by that point, I don't know if he was writing it from prison or from. But like nowadays, you say DeLorean and everyone thinks Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because
Yeah.
it totally subsumed any other like vibes that might have been attached to the car in pop culture.
Wow.
And,
These cultural
yeah.
ties, like, it's my jam.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a big Wallace and Gromit fan,
Mm-hmm.
big stop motion fan. It has that same kind of wild, imaginative, inventor type of main character. And they are attributed with the saving of an entire town's livelihood
Oh, yeah.
that had the Wensleydale cheese factory. And Wensleydale cheese wasn't doing very well. Whether or not it tasted bad, I don't know. But similarly, they got a thank you letter from the creators from Nick Park, who added in Wensleydale cheese as one of the lines, because Wallace always asks for Wensleydale when he wants that cheese. And it's amazing how these storytellers and filmmakers and, yeah, these tastemakers, they can just kind of change an entire person's legacy.
Yeah, totally.
So
Like,
cool.
I have never been a car person. I don't even have a license. I've never had one, and I've never.
still.
No, and I've never wanted to own a car. But like when I was a kid, and I pictured myself one day having a car, I'm like, I want to get a DeLorean
Nice.
because of Back to the Future. And nowadays, like people my age, go and get DeLoreans and fix them up and like actually attach all the props and junk to it to make it look like the time machine.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's more popular than like just having a plain ass DeLorean.
Oh, the Walmart commercial. Did you guys see this?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All the picture cars. I'm like, this is brilliant. It's brilliant. And then they had the Cars song. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. And then it really made me wonder. I'm like, would I have the Batmobile or Ecto-1, Bumblebee?
Yeah.
It's a nice. Chevelle. Oh, man.
So, in the movie. This is one of the elements of the film that does not age well, is the Libyan terrorists.
I mean, it dovetails kind of nicely with Network.
It does kind of dovetail nicely with Network, which had different sorts of terrorist activities going on.
The Arab terrorists were the bad guys, and the Arab terrorists were coming to.
Well, Network was 79, and this in the 80s, like, it was the cliche, and in the 80s, like, the cliche terrorist thing was it would be someone Arab. And, you know, how strange to think that that was the pop cultural representation of terrorists.
I'm stunned.
But it would be someone from the Middle East, and Libya was particularly known at that time for being volatile, and I think there had been some hijackings and things like that. But, you know, you can rip that from the headlines if you want, but if you then portray your Libyan terrorist characters as a couple of, like, guys spouting what's obviously gibberish and not Arabic, and except the only words you can understand are, like, damn Soviet gun, when they're gun jams,
And they're speaking English.
and they're speaking English, and I don't know if they actually got actors of color or if these gentlemen are painted badly.
I'm
but
pretty sure
like,
these guys were browned up.
Yeah. It was not like.
They do have the same word for go.
Yeah, yeah, just go. And like, so yeah, and then they kind of just crash into a thing and die, maybe, in this family comedy adventure.
We were wondering about that.
Questionable what happens
Because
to
we
them.
were like, well, Marty acts like he has all the time in the world now to check on Doc.
But we'll get to
But
that.
it was a movable...
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
But I think also just the idea of there was so much that just was not developed here. And, you know, when you have your same lovably bumbling terrorists, you know, like here and in The Naked Gun.
Yeah,
Like, same thing. And, you know, I just think that's a very interesting 80s movie trope in general.
yes.
Agreed.
While showing Marty the controls, Doc sets the date to November 5th, 1955, the day he conceived a time travel device. The terrorists arrive unexpectedly and open fire on them, finally shooting Doc when he surrenders. Marty escapes in the DeLorean and inadvertently activates the time machine in the process. So yes, in this family comedy action film, this kid has just seen his older scientist friend, like, gunned down by a machine gun in front of him. By terrorists who then turn the gun on him, and you know, he runs away in this, you know, little chase scene around a mall parking lot. But yeah, that's just dark.
Doc also points a 6-shooter in his face, in
Yeah.
his own face, to check what's wrong with it. And I'm like,
Well, that's because he's zany.
Yeah, I mean, when they demonstrate the time machine, and then Doc mentions to him that it's powered by plutonium, and Marty's like, "You just don't walk into a store and buy plutonium. Did you rip that off?" And Doc goes, "Yeah, from a group of Libyan nationalists. They wanted me to build them a bomb, so I took the plutonium and in turn gave them a shoddy bomb casing full of used pinball machine parts." Yes. And he's laughing and, like, you know, just, you know, jumping up and down gleefully while he's doing this, and he's like, "No, let's reload the thing." And the glee in which he's like, "Yeah, I defrauded a bunch of terrorists who wanted nukes in order to build this thing, and you know, everything's fine. And I didn't tell you about this before, so, you know, you were hanging out at my house, like you said, Gabe."
oh, gosh. Right.
But then, like, Marty just escapes from the terrorists when they point a rocket launcher at him, and he time travels into the past, but only one plutonium pellet has been loaded into it, so there's no way for him to get back.
As Doc made that observation that
that
he should have, oh my gosh, I was about to leave without more plutonium. How was I expecting to get back?
I think the whole scene, and Gila, let me know what you think of this as a first-time viewer.
Yes.
I think this whole scene did a really good job, as these things go, of, like, explaining, okay, here's how this works, here's why we need this thing.
I mean, it was a very clear delineation of, like, yes.
Yeah.
It was a good explanation.
You know, and this readout tells you where you're going. This one tells you where you are. This one tells you where you were.
It was a well done.
You know, so when you're seeing
scene.
Everything work later, you know what's going on as
and
the
it was
audience.
the kind of exposition that didn't necessarily feel like forced exposition.
Right, because it worked in character. It's like, of course, he's demonstrating his new invention. He's going to tell him how it works step by step.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do also love how, and we said this out loud, when Marty's like, let's see if you bastards can do 90. Is it bastards?
Yeah.
Yes. and punches it. And we're like, no, but that rocket can.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But so our hero has just had a rocket launcher pointed at him after watching his friend get gunned down again in front of him.
Which is not something you necessarily expect is going to happen in the parking lot
True.
of the Twin Pines
Very
Mall
true.
in Hill Valley, California. Okay, quick
Yes.
side note. September 11th.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. I was in college, and my friends, everybody was shaken, but a friend of mine was like, they're going to come get us next. They're going to come get us next. And I said, okay, I'm going to need you to calm down. I said, because first of all, I don't think anti-Semitism was involved in this. The fact that we're at a Jewish university should not be a concern in that
my
way.
goodness.
And I said, second of all, people in LA don't know where this university is. Do you think that international terrorists know how to find us? It's like they flew into buildings that were 100 stories high. Our building is 3 floors. Like, I really think we're going to be okay.
Oh, no.
Sorry about it.
You know, and this is you know, we say this a lot about classic movies of the 80s and earlier, but this is not a movie you could make today in this way.
No. Like, this part would have to just...
Yeah.
They'd have to think of something more
different,
madcap and zany and comedy rather than like international terrorists wanted nukes and now they're after us.
Right. And then
Yeah.
you do have the whole Indiana Jones, Cold War, Russians, everybody bad
Yeah.
was a Russian, and they even brought that into Stranger Things with the 80s, and everyone evil had a Russian accent, and then that accent just equated to evil person.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how evil people sound.
I
in the
enjoy
80s.
being afraid of Russia.
Yes.
It's a harmless fear. But it gives Russia an inflated sense of national worth for more paranoia.
Wow.
You can thank Spielberg for that.
Spielberg and everyone else, because that was 80s pop culture for you.
Yeah. St. Elmo's Fire, by the way. That was from St. Elmo's
Yes.
Fire. Just in case anyone was curious.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Love it.
Marty finds himself transported to November 5th, 1955 without any plutonium to return. He encounters the teenage George and discovers that Biff has been bullying him since high school.
In the same words.
In the same
Exactly.
words.
Like, literally the exact same words.
Well, how are we supposed to know that it's the same people?
Because that makeup was so good.
That is true. No, that is very, very true.
Yeah. And like, I was in high school, 25 to 30 years ago. And yeah, if any of those bullies showed up today and started, like, trying to bully me in the same way, that would be really ridiculous. But
Yeah.
and it also wouldn't fly because, I mean, shit.
There's no way.
The guy who bullied me in 8th grade, I looked him up a while ago.
Oh my gosh.
Dude's in prison.
Oh.
Dude, one of my bullies is in prison.
Oh.
What did your bully do?
Beat his wife up.
Ooh.
Oh gosh.
My bully just, like, grand larceny.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, but...
Your bullies and Mr. DeLorean, may they
Right.
be jailed
Well,
in
I
peace.
think DeLorean is dead now, but
yeah. No,
yeah.
he is.
Whoa, Jen.
I-
Wow.
yeah.
Insensitive.
Too soon.
Way to make it dark.
yeah, you just brought the whole room down, Jen.
Yeah. We were just
Jen
talking-
Sujin Yoon, what have you done?
Take me back 5 minutes.
Meanwhile, 5 minutes ago.
Plutonium, you're not fooling. That's something else we should put in the show notes if we can find it.
Yes.
Is the Sloven and Allen time machine thing.
Yes.
Magical. Gonna go
Oh,
back
man.
5 minutes into the...
Yeah. After Marty saves George from an oncoming car, he is knocked unconscious and awakens to find himself tended to by Lorraine, who becomes infatuated with him.
That's thirsty Lorraine.
Thirsty Lorraine.
Who had said in the present,
Yes.
I never parked in a car with a boy.
Yeah,
I never...
she
She was,
Yeah,
you know...
she was criticizing him and Jennifer by, any girl who calls a boy is asking for trouble. And
I never called a boy. She was, the model of chastity and virtue in this
But
retcon
then
history.
I feel like it was one of those weird moments a couple years ago where I'm like, maybe that's exactly what my mom did. Oh my gosh. Like telling me all these things like, ladies don't drink. Real ladies don't, go out past a certain hour. My mom is from the 1950s. Cooks with butter and lard still. No. But yeah, it's definitely that whole thing where like she didn't. We smelled weed for the first time when we were like walking by some parking lot, and you know, it was one of those things where it's just like, oh, somebody's having fun. I'm like, Mom, how do you know? What? No. I mean, what's that smell? It's like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Mom has a past.
That whole realization of like, they're maybe not telling you everything.
You know, there's only so many times she can smack my dad when he's about to say something, but I'm like, there's some cover up here.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I think with my parents, I had kind of like my bedroom as a kid was also like my mom's childhood bedroom. So like she knew the ways in which one could sneak out.
I do love how they Doc Brown gives some context to why his mother might have fallen in love with him with that whole Florence Nightingale syndrome, and it's great because it's that whole, you know, understanding why people fall in love with other people. Stockholm, Florence Nightingale, and it's that seeing this sad person hit by her dad's car.
But I think also it's interesting to me because we recently were watching the first season of the new Doctor Who. So the 2005 revival of Doctor Who.
Yes.
And there's an episode where a character has traveled back in time to see her dad get hit by a car and pushes him out of the way. And that changes everything.
Right.
So it's very, So it's very interesting to see what that action is and how that can change the trajectory of history. And obviously it's different in Back to the Future than it is in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But yeah, the feeling that, you know, if you see something is about to do harm to someone that you love, even if it's a completely different context to someone that you love, what you're going to do and the changes that it's going to wind up making. Because her, you know, Lorraine's whole thing was, I fell in love with your dad because I felt bad for him. And yeah, and him not thinking this is the car.
Yeah, he just kind of acts on impulse. And one thing this movie did, which I don't think had been done, because I've always been nuts about time travel fiction. You know, just as a concept, I love it. I've always ingested all the time travel stories I could. And one thing Back to the Future I think innovated in was the idea that a kid would go back to when his parents were that age. And, like, how would he get along with them, or what effects would they have on each other?
Yeah.
Because a lot of time travel, you know, you have as far back as, like, Mark Twain, a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, but it was a big historical thing where, like, I'm in a different era right now. And then here's a time travel story where it's just, I'm 30 years ago. And, you know, yes, it's a weird era, but also, like, I got to deal with my own parents as kids. And, you know, if you've ever looked through, like, a high school yearbook or something, or old photos of your parents when they were the age you are, and just thinking, would I have hung out with these people? Would I have gotten along with these people? And that's something that I don't think a lot of things had explored before this movie.
Yeah, that personal connection I think really makes it. And there is that one line there in the lunchroom, and Marty's just blown away because he's seeing his dad writing. And he's going, get out of here.
Yeah.
I didn't know you did anything creative. You know, and it's just one of those things. I remember my mom, when I was a kid, I was drawing Flounder because, you know, Little Mermaid, 6-year-old Jen, and I just was obsessed. And I remember, I don't have it. I don't even know if it's a real memory, but I swore she drew it, and it was really good. But it's one of those things that, like, it's been written off as a childhood thing to draw. And to do art and to do creative things, unless it's singing or dancing, which they're fantastic at. But yeah, it's fascinating I love that part.
Yeah, and I growing up had there were things just around the house because again it was where my mom lived as a kid, and there was stuff around the house that she had painted. There was stuff around my dad's. My dad was a really good artist, and both my parents were. And there's stuff that they painted in their younger days, and like they never ended up using that like as part of their livelihoods or careers. And I sell the occasional painting, so I feel good about that.
Yeah, even Gabe's parents, I'm always in constant awe of, like, they have artist hands. You truly have hands from your parents, and your dad does stained glass, and it's just always been, I think that era was just all about the hobby of it and being well-rounded and cultured and doing something creative, but then you have your real job.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's something that I think the previous generations of my family have always felt strongly about. It's like I would be encouraged as a kid, like, oh, look, he's creative, he's drawing, he's sculpting, whatever. But then when I started working, it's like, no, you have to get your real job, and then this is something fun you do on the side.
Right.
But don't go depending on this frivolous stuff as your actual work.
Yeah, that vulnerability between Marty and George and them saying the same exact thing, that kind of parallel action of,
Yeah.
I just don't know if I can take that type of rejection, and then Marty being able to hear his dad say that and realize I am exactly like my dad, and I could end up like my dad if I don't take chances, and that little nugget maybe for the future for him to believe in himself.
Right.
Well, I think this movie does those little things so well. I mean, obviously, it's a ridiculous, well, not ridiculous, but it's an over-the-top movie, and it's a Hollywood movie. It's a Spielberg film, but I think there are those moments that are just so true to life, like what we're just talking about. Like, I've had so many moments where I take a step back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's what my dad does. I just did what my dad does. I just did what my mom does, for better or worse, like good times and bad times. But I think the movie really encapsulates those tiny little real life moments. And I think that's what draws people in, really.
Yeah.
Like the action is fun and it's zany and the story's cool. But I think what really gets people is that it's just so true to life at moments, and you don't really expect it.
Yeah.
The relationships feel real.
Yeah.
And the reactions.
But
Caricaturized,
the relationships
but
themselves are believable in a way that you probably relate to this white American suburban family.
Yes. Marty tracks down Doc's younger self for help. Doc is unimpressed with Marty's knowledge of the future, but believes him when he accurately recounts how Doc invented time travel. Which leads to the very funny line, because Ronald Reagan was the president at the time, and in the 50s he was an actor. And so, he goes, who's president of the United States in 1985? Marty goes, Ronald Reagan. He goes, Ronald Reagan, the actor? Who's vice president? Jerry Lewis?
Yes.
And I suppose Jane Wyman is the first lady. And she being who was married to Reagan at the time. And he's like, and Jack Benny is secretary of the Treasury, who was a comic actor known for his miserly cheap character. It was a fun little thing.
That's great. And he brings that back when he's admiring the portable television studio that is the VHS recorder from the 80s, the height of technology.
The VHS camcorder.
Yes.
And like a lot of things from this movie, like you can track down that same model of camcorder.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
But because Back to the Future nuts have been collecting props, like a surviving one of those will now go for a massive pile on eBay, because even though technologically it's a pile of junk, but it's a relic now that Back to the Future fans, the privileged Back to the Future fans with money to burn, will burn that money.
Oh, yeah. I'm waiting for the Marty McFly flip clock to go on sale.
Yeah.
I had a clock.
It's so far still at $250.
Well,
Yeah, I had a clock that wasn't the same model, but I was shopping for clocks. I needed a clock, and I found one that had the flippy numbers, and I was so happy because it was almost like Marty's clock.
Almost.
See, and my association with that, and again, it's probably a function of not having seen this movie until today, but Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
Obviously.
yeah.
Yeah.
And in one of the bedrooms at my grandparents' house, there was a flippy clock, and I couldn't sleep in there because the damn thing clicked every minute.
Yes.
It's the old-timey, unappreciated ASMR.
Yeah, right.
No, but I do like how he talks about the portable production studio, because then he said, oh, of course the president has to be an actor because he's got to look good on TV.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
like, oh, yeah.
When was the debate, the Nixon-Kennedy debate? 1960?
60, yeah.
60. Okay, so it hadn't come up yet.
Yeah, it was Sweaty Nixon who
Sweaty Nixon
looked
lost
bad
the
on
election
television.
in that debate because he refused to let them put makeup on him.
Yeah.
And he
so
looked
he looked
gross,
all stubbly and sweaty.
Kennedy
and,
was the picture of health, and then
Yeah.
Kennedy won the
With
election.
Yeah, and
presidential fitness.
well, the big thing after that was like people who listened to the debate on the radio thought Nixon won, and people who watched it on TV
That's
thought Kennedy won.
right.
And
Huh.
and here we are now.
Perception.
Anyway.
Yes. With no plutonium, Doc explains that the only power source capable of generating the necessary 1.21 gigawatts, or gigawatts as they pronounce it in this movie, of electricity for the time machine is a bolt of lightning. Marty shows Doc a flyer from the future that recounts a lightning strike at the town's courthouse due the coming Saturday night.
MacGuffin. MacGuffin comes home to
indeed.
roost.
And, of course, this is something that...
Chicken MacGuffin.
I thought about this too hard, and it kind of ruined the MacGuffin for me. Because, okay, the news article says the lightning struck the clock tower at 10:04 p.m. That's an entire minute. A lightning strike is a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
How can you line that up? It could be any one of the seconds, any one of the fraction of the seconds along that minute, but somehow they were able to boil it down to the right instant. So I'm sorry, I just ruined the movie for everyone listening and everyone in this room.
It crossed my mind for a second last night. We're watching the bolt travel through the wiring.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that would
okay,
be-
that takes some time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's believable that like the contact could be in the general.
Yeah, it's
Time
slow
to-
electricity.
Yeah. Everything was slower back then.
Yeah.
It was just leisurely 1950s
It
electricity.
was analog lightning.
Or we could believe that Doc was so brilliant
Yes.
that the lightning is just captured.
Yeah, he had some kind of
And then,
capacitor in there to...
It
Lightning
could
in a
extend
bottle
through the
and-
whole minute. I don't know.
Yeah. But it was also like, it was the same storm in Ghostbusters.
Ah.
It was the same storm.
Well, it was the same sound effects because
Definitely.
there is a sound effect. It's like, you know, the Wilhelm scream sound effect.
Yep.
Do you guys know the Wilhelm scream?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's a sound effect that's been used out of the library so many times that it's kind of cliched. And there is another one called, I think, Castle Thunder, which is a sound effect for thunder that and it gets used in everything to this day. And it's you're hearing the same thunder and the thunderclap and lightning
Yeah, I
bolt.
think it's also at the beginning of Count Duckula.
It might be, yeah.
What the hell is a gigawatt?
Yeah. And I remember, like, fans online when I started getting involved in online fandom for things in the 90s. And so many Back to the Future fans swore that it was gigawatt, Gigowatt. And it's like, no, it's gigawatt. They're just saying it with the soft G. Because back before everyone was talking about giga anything in mainstream culture, and it was just a scientific measurement that, like, nerds would say, you could say it with a hard or soft G.
Really?
Yes, it like both are correct. It's just not, there isn't a right or wrong one in English.
So our equivalent being the GIF debate
Yes.
that
Sort
I
of.
come across a lot.
Yes, I, for obvious reasons, come down on the hard G side.
Likewise.
Yes, Gila.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
But well, the G in GIF is short
It's a
for
G
graphics,
thing.
not
It's
graphics.
definitely a G thing.
Yeah.
Nothing,
gosh.
nothing but a G thing.
Ain't nothing but a G thing. This is
Baby.
amazing. Oh
And
my.
now we brought that debate into this.
Well, now we know where the lines are drawn.
Well, I mean,
But yes, so it's a gigawatt, but they call it a gigawatt.
Alliances have been formed here.
But okay, when Doc instructs Marty not to leave his house or interact with anyone, as he could inadvertently alter the future, they realize that he has prevented his parents from meeting by saving George from the car. Doc warns Marty that he must find a way for Lorraine to fall in love with George, or he will be erased from existence. This is especially interesting because Doc is never portrayed as a character with any sort of real handle on human romance or relationships, and here he is advising Marty on how to get his parents to fall in love with each other. When he's also, like, got the goofy scientist trope of, like, sometimes saying really long, convoluted expressions for things. Like, he points to the poster on the wall about the dance, and he goes, "There's a rhythmic ceremony or ritual coming up." Like,
Yeah.
right, and that was also part of why I was. This is my Tuck Everlasting theory, because he's so not of this time. Whatever time it is,
yes.
he's not of this time. And, you know, it's just the picture of Dorian Gray, Locked in Time, Tuck Everlasting, which, by the way, Locked in Time, the best Lois Duncan book. Seriously.
Gonna pick that up.
Could I posit that perhaps Doc isn't being emotional, like he's not seeing it as love, but he's seeing it as kind of a formula,
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
and that Marty has knocked X out, and because X is no longer there, the algorithm is messed up, so he has to fix it.
So it's
instead
calculated.
right, he's seeing it scientifically
These are
rather
how
than
humans work.
emotionally.
Oh my God, he's running game.
Yeah.
He's the OG.
Yes, if you do this, this, and this, then love happens. Surely, that's how humans work.
It's before Hitch. Yes.
Yeah, before Hitch.
Yeah, it's, his hair is like Mystery's hat. So that's basically where we're at right now.
So Marty attempts to correct his parents' history and warn Doc of the future dangers, but both strategies fail. His attempts to introduce his parents backfire during a confrontation with Biff, and Doc refuses to listen to any information about the future, saying no one should know too much about their own destiny.
Density.
Yes. Crispin Glover had an official fan club for a while that was called Mr. Density.
No,
Nice.
my goodness.
Wow.
I adore
As a-
that.
Yeah. I remember the ad for it in the back of a Back to the Future fan club fanzine that I had way back when. After Lorraine asks... Yes, Mr. Density. After Lorraine asks Marty to the school dance, Marty devises a plan with George. He will feign inappropriate advances on Lorraine, allowing George to rescue her. Because, of course, he's still got this picture in his head of all the stuff his mom has told him about, like, how she would never have done certain things with a boy.
Park with a boy.
The plan goes awry when a drunken Biff gets rid of Marty and attempts to force himself on Lorraine.
Rape is a plot point. Woohoo!
For kids.
It's a family flick.
Family
Yeah.
comedy.
Although, I mean, bringing it back to that great observation about the how it's a cartoon. It's, the bad guys and the good guys, and the bad guys do this, and they sound like this, and they behave like this, and then the good guys will triumph or underdogs or whatnot. But yeah, it's that very Pepe Le Pew,
Yeah.
not acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
But kids are like, oh man, they're just so crazy for ladies, and this is funny. And then eventually, like, we don't know what's really happening other than she doesn't want it, and he does, and he's gonna use all that strength to get it. I don't know. It's bad.
Yeah, and I mean, just his continual refrain of you want it.
Oh gosh.
You don't know you
Cringy.
want it, but I'm gonna give it to you. And it's just like, this movie was cartoonish enough that he could have tied her to the railroad tracks like Snidely Whiplash, and that would have been fine.
Oh my gosh.
I could have sworn I saw him curling his mustache in that one scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing about this is, like, this was them making a movie in the mid-'80s and telling them, like, okay, so this is the 50s, so you got to act like you're really shitty toward women, like, for now. And so it's like, I mean, shit was still not good in the 80s. I hate to spoil any illusions either any of you in this room would have about that, but shit was not great for women in the mid-'80s, but like, it's like, now we're going to do it really bad because
Yeah.
it's 30 years ago.
Yeah. And also, is this when we get to talk about the racial politics of it too? Because this is all at the same time.
We can do, yes, because of
Marty
course,
McFly invented rock and roll.
Marty McFly invented rock and roll. We haven't gotten to that point here, but like,
Sorry, I
Yeah.
figured it was coming soon.
no, it's definitely
Because
like,
Marty McFly is basically inventing rock and roll while Biff Tannen is trying to rape his mom in the parking lot. So,
well, after.
After.
I'm sorry, it's moments though. It's
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, after Lorraine asks Marty to the school dance, Marty devises a plan with George. He will feign it. Oh, I already did that part. The plan goes awry when a drunken Biff gets rid of Marty and attempts to force himself on... I did that part. George, enraged, knocks out Biff, and Lorraine accompanies him to the dance floor, where they kiss while Marty performs with the band, securing his existence in the future.
Okay, so the moment when Biff is like twisting Crispin Glover like a pretzel,
Yeah.
and then his hand just sort of forms into a fist, almost against his will.
Well, he's just like... He's getting his own arm twisted and just like in pain, but then he sees Lorraine like tries to claw Biff away from him, and Biff knocks her onto the ground, and
There's a lot of face palming in this movie.
yeah. But he face palms her like on her ass in the parking lot, and
In that
that's
lovely
that's when
peach dress.
in that lovely peach dress
With those lovely peach heels.
and yeah, and so that's when George he's like, oh, now I'm angry because like Biff is not only bullying him, he's bullying Lorraine.
Hulk
So-
smash.
And so Crispin Glover, you see these shots of like his hand curling into a fist and his face getting angrier and angrier, and basically, yes, Hulk smash. And I tell you, multiple times when I saw this in the theater as a kid, the audience applauded.
I'm sure they
At
did.
that part.
I'm sure they did.
And I have not seen many movies where the audience applauded at a thing during the movie. But that happened multiple times in Back to the Future, can confirm. When George punches Biff.
That just, his laughter. It's the same as a ginger at the end. Like, it's
Yeah.
just
So
evil for evil's
maniacal,
sake.
yeah.
They're just enjoying this moment so much.
Tom Wilson was so good at being that bully, at being the villain in this. Like, just a great Hollywood bully to see get his comeuppance.
Yes. I've often tried to play out in my head, like, the mechanics of him swinging around with his arm locked back like that. I'm like, okay, so we would have to, like,
I always thought it
windmill
was
his
I
entire
didn't think
body.
it was his arm that was locked. I thought it was his free arm.
It is his free arm.
Yeah.
So the other arm
So
is
his right arm
back.
is
Oh,
behind his
I
back,
see what you're saying.
and he swings around
So
with
Yeah,
his
that's
left.
he would have to swing. It's like almost a 360,
Yeah,
like a roundhouse, but with a fist.
round fist.
Round fist. The next Crispin
Chief Justice
Glover
William
Kung Fu.
Roundfist.
Yes.
No, it's like you think about stuff like that. Like my brother and I used to do that Three Stooges thing where you put your hand on
Oh,
your
yeah,
nose
who didn't?
to keep you from poking. Right. The problem is my brother has freakishly long fingers. So even if I put my hand in front of my face, his fingers are long enough that he can still poke me in the eyes around my fingers.
Oh, no.
Right? It's terrible, and he still does it. We're adults. We're adults in our 30s, and he still does that. Yeah, but I can, like, if you have those long limbs, you could probably, like, twist it around a little bit in a weird way, but I don't know.
He's really down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also he's just really angry, so that like I think
I want to
The
believe
adrenaline
that
just-
Biff
Yeah.
knows, like, he has this idea of how weak George is, and so he kind of, like, isn't paying attention and is, like, loosening up. So then maybe there's, like, a moment of opportunity.
Yeah, if
Well,
Biff-
did
his
he
grip
let
is not
go
that strong.
when? Did he let go when he face palmed her to the ground?
No,
No, he
he
didn't.
was still
Okay.
twisting
I
his
couldn't
arm.
remember.
Yeah.
No, but Biff failed his observation roll, and George like had a +1 bonus to melee for proximity. I
Oh,
think.
now
and
you're
ju-
speaking
yeah.
our-
Natty
our
rolled a
language.
natty 20
Yes.
for acrobatics.
Yeah, he rolled a 20 basically.
Just talking gibberish. But no, I think also the idea that, because to me it read like this was happening, Biff didn't know what or why it was happening. It just
Right.
happened to him. It was his density.
Oh, and we're back.
Drop the mic.
Don't drop these mics; they're kind of expensive.
A little bit of density just coming into the situation, and he's like,
Oh
I
my
must clock this fella in the face now.
The Glovers are off.
Oh, nicely done.
Gosh.
We're tag teaming here.
That was tag team back again.
Yes, George in rage knocks out Biff, and Lorraine accompanies him to the dance floor where they kiss while Marty performs with the band, securing his existence in the future. And yes, Marty McFly, a white kid from the suburbs, invents rock and roll out from under Chuck Berry.
But it's okay because his cousin Marvin calls him
Yes.
and holds up the phone. And I did enjoy the part where Ginger Kid cuts in, and all of a sudden Marty's like, I can't play.
Yeah, because Ginger Kid cutting in like interrupted the flow of events of George and Lorraine getting back together, and so Marty is looking at his photograph that's fading, and at the very last moment he sees his own hand transparent in front of him, while drunk Ginger Kid is like cackling while like dancing with Lorraine,
Moving her
And-
across the floor. George!
Yeah. I think as a kid, even more than Biff, like that cackling redhead dude was like my mental image
It's like-
of a school asshole.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate villain of the movie. The secret villain of the movie is this kid.
Yeah, fun fact, my bully, Ginger.
Oh.
Short and ginger, but ginger nonetheless.
This cuts deep. Yeah, going back to the John Mulaney sketch where he goes, yeah, so then we're sitting at the writer's table, and then we say, yeah. So he starts playing Johnny Be Good. So we take that away from them.
Yeah. And but that was the thing about seeing this movie today for the first time was like I understood everything Mulaney was talking about
That's amazing.
because it's that
Yes.
much in the public consciousness that I hadn't even needed to see the movie. And then I saw the movie and it was like there were no surprises. There were no surprises. I knew what was going to happen,
There was, but yeah.
also I don't really get surprised by movies.
No, it's difficult to surprise you with a movie.
It is. I got surprised by Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, I have not seen that yet.
It's good.
You have not seen it?
We have.
No, we have not. We're bad on the Oscars list.
Yeah.
We've seen one, and obviously we're not watching the Oscars.
Yeah, which are on right,
Right
now.
now.
We're all missing it.
Oh, hello.
I mean, I think we have more important things to do.
Oh,
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we are recording it
Yeah.
But still,
Why talk about a couple dozen movies from this year when we could talk about one from
35 years ago.
That we've seen 100 times.
That did not win any Oscars.
Now, Gabe and I do make a point. He is now on my yearly birthday tradition of watching the Oscar-nominated animated shorts at IFC every year, and I think this will be like year 4 or 5. So yeah, I enjoy that.
Very cool.
But I did not even have that on the radar that it's on tonight.
Yes. Our friends Kyle and Emmanuel, who we do the radio show Off the Hook with, have a different radio show that we're not involved in called Off the Wall that they broadcast out of Stony Brook on Long Island. And one of the things they're chronicling on that show is they're watching all the Best Picture winners in order.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think,
goodness.
where are they now? Are they like in the...
I think they're in the 70s now.
Yeah, I think they
And
might be.
it's always a lot of fun because I have opinions about this, and they were not prepared for that. So I was like, they said, "Where are you now?" I said, "Where are you now?" They said, "The greatest show on earth." I'm like, "Oh God, seriously?" Let's talk about movies that did not deserve to win Best
Tell
Picture,
me
and I like.
you are guesting on their show.
I'm not. They, this
they-
is their thing, and
These
that's
are
fine.
important perspectives.
But I'm
No,
like,
but we have these conversations over dinner after the show
and I
we all
get
do
like
together.
real animated, and it surprised them. I think initially because they were like, "Oh, this is Rob's girlfriend, then fiance, then wife. She doesn't speak."
No, you were never the one who doesn't speak.
No,
And
but
I mean that in the best possible way.
Thank you. But like before I was on the show, I just sat there quietly for an hour, and then had a lot to say at dinner because I'd been silent for an hour, or sometimes 2. And just I have a lot of opinions about Best Picture winners.
Well, I would have liked to be a fly off that wall.
That's why we got you guys to fly into these walls here
Hey.
today.
Hey yo.
And so we're coming into the end here. As the storm arrives, Marty returns to the clock tower and the lightning strikes, sending Marty back to 1985 a few minutes before his departure. This skips over all the great physical stuff that Christopher Lloyd gets to do, like hanging off the clock, trying to reconnect the cables.
Okay, so my fear of heights is
Oh,
only
yeah.
very manageable heights, like things that you could fall off of. Like I don't have an issue with flying. I I was pretty okay at like the top of the Empire State Building. I was less okay at the top of Rockefeller Center because there's a difference between plexiglass panels and
Oh,
like
yeah.
metal fence. I am not okay when you're talking about like towers. I am not okay at a shopping mall where they have that thing that you could fall over between the floors. Those terrify me.
Yeah. Second floor mall is definitely a thing for me.
Yeah.
Oof. So when Doc was like at the top of the clock tower, and I was like,
Nope.
nope, nope.
Yeah, I could sense you getting clenchy at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's your vocabulary word for the day, clenchy.
Clenchy.
I was emphatically awake again by that point, and I was just like,
But
no.
But in addition to the height squick, though, I mean, just Christopher Lloyd's awesome physical acting and comedy that he got to do with just like him looking at things and the eyes going nuts and his screaming at stuff and
Holding his head with the
Yeah,
bell.
with
He
the-
has
with the
to
bell
look
ringing.
at the
Yeah.
bell. Where is it coming from?
there's a moment where he kind of like looks at the big jaguar looking
Yeah, the gargoyles, yeah.
gargoyle and just like gets scared by it and there's a great like this movie has a couple of subtle gags that you don't necessarily notice on first viewing, but there's the thing where he's edging across the ledge on the clock tower and a bit of it breaks under his feet, and that's how he ends up hanging off the hands of the clock. And in the beginning of the movie, before that's happened in the past, the clock tower has a straight ledge. But at the end of the movie, when he comes back to 1985, the clock has that ledge cut out of it, taken out of it, because Doc broke it in the
Yes.
50s.
Love it.
So like the changes to it's a couple of the changes to the movie's present that happened that Marty changed in the past.
Right. How is that okay? Because if you're not supposed to change the past when if you're not supposed to change the future when you're in the past, how are the changes that he made okay? Except for the fact that it's the 80s and it's like, hey, we have more stuff.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. But like the changes that were dangerous were like the ones that led to him not being born because his parents never got together.
Right.
Yeah.
Other things like breaking an extra bit off a building, I think, have no further repercussions. As the storm arrives, Marty returns to the clock tower and the lightning strikes, sending Marty back to 1985 a few minutes before his departure. After watching Doc get shot again, he grieves until Doc gets up and reveals that he had listened to Marty's warnings and worn a bulletproof vest. Now, there was something that you were like pointing at the screen about, and I
Yeah.
thought it was the Lone Pine Mall thing.
No, I didn't even notice that because I was so caught up in the other
I didn't
thing.
either, but Jen pointed out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so clever.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it's the Twin Pines
Yeah,
Mall, but then
yeah,
Marty
yeah.
runs over one of the pine trees in the past, and he comes back, and it's the Lone Pine Mall.
Right.
But what was it that you were?
Well, because they were all like suited up for the plutonium and like lead lined everything.
Yeah.
So I thought the doc was wearing a lead lined suit,
Oh.
and he couldn't, and he didn't really get hit.
No, when they were putting the plutonium in the thing, they were wearing radiation suits with the hoods down. But once the plutonium pellet was inside the time machine, then he closes it up and takes the hood off and goes, "It's safe now. Everything's lead lined," meaning the car. Like
Oh.
the bits in the car where the plutonium sits were all lead lined.
Okay.
So the radioactivity wouldn't. The thing about radiation suits is like they don't really protect you from radiation itself. What they are is they're basically a very fine mesh that doesn't let particles through.
Oh no,
And-
flashbacks.
And so, but what that means is that you won't get a radioactive particle stuck to you on your clothing that you then leave the lab or whatever with.
Okay,
Classic Homer.
Yeah.
I see. But for what it's worth, I want to
Sector
remind
7.
everyone who's listening right now that when you get your dental x-rays, it's very important to ask them to put a neck shield on you so you don't get extra radiation to your thyroid, because don't fuck up your thyroid. Trust me on this one. Don't fuck up your thyroid.
No.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Okay, home stretch here. Doc takes Marty home and departs to the future. Marty awakens the next morning to find his father is now a self-confident and successful author. With George being a successful sci-fi author in this new rebooted reality of the present, his first novel shows up in a box, and it's called A Match Made in Space.
I
And
love the author photograph. Of
Yeah.
that.
You can see by the cover art that it's based on when Marty dressed as Darth Vader, which we didn't mention.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's about it. It's obviously about an alien that gets a couple of kids to match up together, and it is also the name of the podcast which inspired this one, A Match Made in Space, which is
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, because I knew the title sounded familiar and it didn't occur to me. Thank you. Didn't occur to me why.
Yeah, because there is a charming couple called John Walter and Ellie Goodman. I've mentioned them before on this program.
Indeed.
And they've had this podcast going, which they just had the 50th episode of.
Way to go,
Oh,
guys.
wow.
Way to go, guys.
Nice.
They're about Gila's and my age. And they show each other 80s movies from their childhood. It's specifically 80s movies that they saw when they were kids. And they go back and forth and take turns showing each other these movies. And so
And the
they're
name of their podcast?
the name of their podcast is A Match Made in
That's
Space.
great.
They're MMIS podcast on Twitter, and they are awesome. Their work is awesome, and
Can't
they've
wait
also
to
got
listen. Yeah.
they've got a deep back catalog of stuff. So if you're into 80s movies and you wanna listen to some really talented, charming people nerd out over them, check it out. Match Made in Space.
For sure.
They did not do Back to the Future, and I'm really hoping that they're not doing a Back to the Future episode right now, because if we
Crossover.
Little awkward.
yeah.
It's like, I know that Biff wasn't actually working for them, but...
No, he was waxing their car.
Right, but then, like, the box came, and he was like, oh, hey, I think your book is here. I think this is your first book. And then he, like, opened the box.
No, Lorraine opened the box.
Oh,
I think.
okay.
It's not clear. Like, is he a personal assistant?
Because, like, he had the truck
Well,
that
he's-
said Biff's
Yeah,
auto,
Biff's
detailing
Auto Detailing.
or whatever.
And yeah, so he's basically doing their shit work, and George is like watching him out the door, going, "Yeah, that Biff, what a character! I've had to keep my eye on him ever since high school." And this is now George McFly, not as the like twitchy, geeky dude from the beginning of the movie, but as sort of a leisurely, successful guy
So
in like khakis.
Wish fulfillment, George McFly.
Wish fulfillment, George McFly, and so like, and Lorraine shows up and she's thin and not swigging booze from a bottle.
And they really like each other.
Yeah,
They
and
can't keep their hands off each other.
so and also the house is much nicer.
and it's
and
the
they-
same address.
Yes, it's the same address, but they've got, like, a bigger house and more stuff and nicer stuff, because 1980s.
Yeah. Marty awakens the next morning to find that his father is now a self-confident and successful author. His mother is fit and happy. Biff is now an obsequious auto valet. Yeah, he's kind of Uriah Heep there. As Marty reunites with Jennifer, Doc reappears with the DeLorean and insists they return with him to aid their future children. The trio boards the DeLorean, which now flies and travels into the future.
Where we're going, we don't need roads. So did they know that there was going to be a sequel greenlit to this thing?
They did not, which is very interesting.
Interesting.
Because it's something I noticed watching this in HD, because in the theater, when the movie ended, the movie just ended, it went to credits. Later, when they would show it on television, and it got released on home video initially, it had the added logo of "To Be Continued"
Right.
in the Back to the Future title font.
With a question mark, was it?
No question
No?
mark. It was just "To Be Continued," and it was at that point that they knew, like, after the first one had been hugely successful in the theaters, and they knew, okay, we're gonna do this thing again. It took them 4 years to do it, but then
4 years.
in 1989.
That gap was not
Back to the Future. No.
something I was aware of as a kid.
Nope. It was 4 years, and being that I was a kid during those 4 years, it seemed like forever.
Oh.
But yeah, so "To Be Continued" was added on the home video releases, and I think the DVDs as well. But on the Blu-rays, it's now gone back to the original version where
I was going to say we did not see that.
we did not see the "To Be Continued" card,
Huh.
which
Interesting.
is very interesting. And I think Blu-ray, the whole goal with that sort of thing is to present the movie like as, unless you're doing some George Lucas special edition shit,
I was just
like
going to say, wait a second, yeah.
yeah. but
As accurate to the...
But yeah, so most people who didn't experience this movie in its initial theatrical run, but saw it later, saw it "To Be Continued" at the end of it. But at this point, they were just like, it was kind of their off into the sunset thing. The producers of this movie like later had to figure out how to go on from that last thing, which was supposed to be just the final gag of the movie. You know, you're okay, your kids. Something's got to be done about your kids. So we will reconvene on that point at some point for Back to the Future.
In about
Part
4
2.
years.
Yes, in about 4 years.
Episode 202 coming soon.
But yeah, that's 1985's Back to the Future.
Oh, that outfit at the end.
Yes, his future outfit.
I think I saw that on the street on the way over here.
Yeah, you might have.
Very
And nobody
contemporary.
bats an eye. New
Now
York
they wouldn't. I think it was Fashion Week.
I realized I forgot to put my life preserver on before we started before we started recording. I'm sorry.
Amazing.
Yes.
I did take notes, pop culture ties of, I never noticed Doc's Nikes in the beginning in the parking lot, and I'm like, they are like super fly. Like I was like, I looked it up while we were watching, and they've been reissued, and now they're something like $300, but they're really cool. They're like orange, kind of tannish high tops. And yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
I also never noticed Marty's wardrobe assimilation to the 1950s. So I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, why would he have a second pair of shoes? Oh, no, he got those in 1955 because everyone was wearing Chucks, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whose closet did he raid?
Exactly.
Yeah. Either Doc had like really short Michael J. Fox outfits,
Yeah, I was
like
gonna say-
just in a box somewhere.
Was it the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants there for a minute? Because there's
Yeah.
no way that like
just seemed-
Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd can wear the same clothes.
No, but I think ostensibly Doc just like went out and got a bunch of clothes for him.
Oh, right, because he had all the money then, because he hasn't burned through his family fortune yet.
Right, and that was another interesting little subtle thing that you might notice is in the very beginning with the panning clock shots. The camera also pans by a couple of news articles that have been framed.
Yeah.
One is the
Yes.
Brown Mansion destroyed, and then you see like the building that all that stuff is in the beginning is the garage of the original house.
Yeah.
But there's other
Yes.
stuff on the rest of the land
Yeah.
where the mansion used to be.
Who the hell is John F. Kennedy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And leaving,
And-
Marty leaving the garage has to go through a chain link fence.
yeah, he has to go through a chain link fence, and so like the implication here is that basically he's burned through his entire family fortune. He's sold off the mansion part and is living in what used to be his garage. And
Yeah.
so
I
yeah,
mean,
that's-
I loved all the Tiffany lamps that were when he goes back to 1955. It's like, wow, this is an estate.
yeah.
Giant pergola on top.
So that's how you know like Doc's family had money, and that's why he was able to
The
get a
Art Deco
DeLorean and a
dress.
bunch of sci-fi shit to drill onto it.
And also the robe. It was like this sparkly Hugh Hefner
Yes, like the smoking jacket.
The
Yeah.
smoking jacket. Yes, thank you. Amazing. So good.
But yes. So, for you two, Gabe and Jen, who have seen this before, how's revisiting it?
Like I was saying, I wasn't super familiar with it as both of you, so I feel like I'm more in Gila's court almost. But yeah, for me at least, it was an enjoyable flick. It's always been an enjoyable movie. It's fun, it's exciting. I mean, of course, it has its shortcomings, but it still does hold that nostalgia for me, and I think that's its strength as a film. You know, a lot of films from that era, or really any era, they don't hold up, and you can watch them and be like, man, like I remember loving this movie so much when I was a kid, but now it's trash and it's so disappointing.
Yeah.
But Back to the Future, and I think it holds up in that way.
Yeah,
So
I think the subtext of that was, Gila and I are not insanely obsessed with this film like you guys are. I don't know. Revisiting it is always great. Again, I hadn't seen it on a screen this big, and if I did, I probably just threw it on because I was cleaning the house and I could just picture it while I was cleaning. But to really watch it, knowing that we were going to speak on it and that I wanted to see little details, maybe that I hadn't noticed before, I think my fandom kind of came up with the fandom, and it's not so much jumping on the bandwagon, but realizing people, I mean, I guess just coming across more and more storytelling and then realizing the ones from our era or that you grew up with actually were great stories that were written and revised and considered, and it was before this kind of fast content creation age of, you know, it was considered. There's lots of fun plot points and subtle foreshadowing and allusions and appreciating devices in a way that, like, I wish to tell a story like this one day that would be discussed like this with a bunch of nerds sitting around.
Yeah, and for me, like, I don't know if you can even call it revisiting it, because I rewatch this regularly. It's something that I'll throw on just like while I'm, you know, doing stuff around the house or whatever. But it's also like a lot of movies that I really love, I've done something that I don't think I haven't heard of a lot of people doing, which is I will rip the audio from them and I have them as MP3s on my phone.
Oh, great.
And that is the modern equivalent to something I used to do, which was I would hook my audio cassette recorder up to the VCR and get my favorite movies on audio tape, so I could just listen during like long car rides or long bus rides or whatever.
That's amazing. Gila, we're married.
Yes.
Because I did many of these things when I was a kid as well. I'm essentially...
Yeah.
Your husband is within... Yes. I definitely did that, and I am not ashamed to say that it was with episodes of Pokemon when it first came out with Indigo League. And it was one of those things where I had, you know, bad body issues, and my parents were like, you should walk around the block. You know, you're getting fat, whatever. So I would record Pokemon audio, and this was before the concept of selling TV shows on DVD existed. And I remember thinking, or I remember not thinking anything of it, but just that I could probably picture it, and that I would record the audio exactly as you just said, and walk around the block on a sunny day in a neighborhood where you could walk around in a loop into cul-de-sacs and such, and just listen to the audio, which is pretty... That's awesome. I feel less weird. Thank you, Rob. We were special children.
We were. Like, I think we might be the same person in some ways. But it's not something that I can really revisit, because I used to rewatch it constantly. I mean, I used to, like, when I had it on VHS, I would put it on, like, after school at least a couple times a week. And so, yes, eventually I memorized the entire movie, and I got to the point where I didn't need the audio because I could just go through the movie in my head.
Amazing.
I've done that on long flights when, like, I didn't, like, having everything I want on my phone. And even after, when I don't want to mess with headphones. But so, like, it's a movie that I've seen more times than I could ever quantify, seen or experienced. And, yeah, it's comfort food. It's it's
That's a
cinematic
great
comfort food for me,
description. Yeah.
in a major way. And like, yeah, I've got lots of trinkets. There's a little hoverboard on my computer desk, and DeLoreans everywhere, and stuff like that. But yeah, it's something that really came to mean a lot to me.
And thank you for sharing it with me.
So for you, having seen this for the first time, now that we've all talked about how meaningful this is to, now it's your turn to crap on it.
Yeah, like I said, I think I said in the intro, I'm going to be like holding a pin to all your balloons. Is basically how this is going to work. My dad used to talk about when you hear a song for the first time, but it's an ancient song, and you hear it in your gut, like it's something you've heard before.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is so inescapable in our culture that everything that happened, I knew it. I knew 1.21 gigawatts. I knew 88 miles per hour. I knew What Are You Looking At, Butthead? I knew the Enchantment Under the Sea dance because at Karaoke League we had a school dance night, and we actually themed our stuff as we all did one continuous school dance, and it was the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, and it was great. But seeing it on the cusp of 40 for the first time is not the intention of the filmmakers. I'm reasonably willing to say. This is a movie that was designed for you to see it for the first time as a kid. It was designed, I'm willing to posit that it was designed for children. Mm-hmm. And it's something that's going to stay with you for a long time. I am 39 years old. I'm a 39-year-old. Thank you. I'm a 39-year-old married woman. I don't necessarily know if this was like designed for me. It was not. I'm reasonably willing to say that. But getting to experience this with you was pretty great. Getting to talk about it with you guys was pretty great. And again, I feel really guilty about the parts I slept through. And I was trying to stay awake, man. I really was. Fighting
Just doesn't have
against
the
it.
pacing of it.
Yeah.
Well, it is also 2020.
Yeah.
And so you not being of the age that their target demographic might have been, but also not living in the time.
That's very
of
true.
All these things there,
Yeah.
This is cool. This is not cool.
So, I'm very excited for us to go on to number 2, to, what was 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember that day. Oh, the memes.
I remember the memes, yes. And, everybody kept, the meme kept coming up all through that year. No, it's today. No, it's today.
Yeah.
And then it actually was.
Yeah, no, there was a Tumblr blog that I think was automated where it would just post a manipulated screenshot showing whatever day it was on the time circuits display. And so every day a post would go out going, look, today's the day that, that Marty McFly went to in Back to the Future 2. And of course, only one of them was the real day. But this bot kept going just as a fun little troll.
As a goof.
Yeah, as a goddamn goof.
As a goddamn goof.
It weeded out the true fans.
Yes.
No, it weeded out the true non-fans.
But it's funny, and this movie has developed. This movie has developed a level of fandom to it. It wasn't when I was growing up, in the 90s and stuff. People knew Back to the Future. It was in the public consciousness, but even among the sci-fi geeks, it wasn't something that people were necessarily coalescing a fandom around. Mm-hmm. Apart from one guy called Stephen Clark, who I think still runs the official Back to the Future website. But back in the day, he ran the official Back to the Future fan club, which published a fanzine, which I was subscribed to for a little while.
Oh wow!
And
you read the fan magazine.
just this one, and a couple of Starlogs.
Not 4 or 5 a month.
No. Yeah.
The Boy Scouts got to him.
Yeah.
All those magazines.
She's doing Singing in the Rain at me, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But
I am.
But as fandom started coalescing on the internet, when the internet became a thing, then
right.
Back to the Future was always one of the smaller, quieter ones I was involved with back in the day. Nowadays, it's pretty level with other fandoms out there, but it's also one in which like I said, people buy DeLoreans and then spend tons of money making them over into the time machine, and people have entire businesses made around making, remaking all the props that you then attach to your 35-year-old car. To make it the at the end, when instead of the plutonium chamber there's Mr. Fusion, and he just throws a bunch of garbage into the thing, and it says Mr. Fusion Home Energy Reactor. That's made from a certain model of Krupp's coffee grinder.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's so funny, because I was going to say that Mr. Fusion, when I saw it last night, looks pretty modern.
Yeah.
Like, looks like an appliance in the kitchen in 2000.
Yeah, and at the time, it was a kind of old coffee grinder that you would get for your kitchen counter that you could grind coffee beans with. It also appears in the movie Alien. In the first Alien movie, it's a coffee grinder that's used on the ship as a coffee grinder.
Whoa.
But
Nailed it.
Revolutionary.
but also, because
So literal.
because this coffee grinder was used as Mr. Fusion in Back to the Future, it's now near impossible to get hold of, and when you see one come up, it goes for hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a 35-year-old chunk of plastic with a motor in it, because it is the only way you could make an accurate Mr. Fusion. Except I think maybe some toy company made one for a while or whatever.
Yeah,
that
sounds
wasn't
about
very
right.
good. But like so many, like the props on the car, the stuff attached to the car is all just like literal junk from like industrial stuff. There's like helicopter parts on it, and a couple of just big capacitors out in the open that would never have worked well. There's parts from like jet aircraft that like were pulled out of a dumpster somewhere, and all that stuff is stuff now that people have to either hunt down like these obscure bits and pieces of things, or painstakingly replicate them to make their own Back to the Future cars. And it's part of the joy of like weird ass prop building obsessions.
Yeah.
But yeah, because of Back to the Future, now an obsolete plastic coffee grinder will now cost you hundreds of dollars. which is why it's one of those things I look for when I'm at like a thrift store or yard sale. Like somebody somewhere just happens to have one of these like in a garage or something.
Oh, sure.
They'll put like a price tag on it for like $2 or something, and
That
it'll be like
kind
hitting the
of
lotto.
flipping, I totally geek out over. It's like, you don't even know what you have. It's like
Yes.
people, giving away Beanie Babies at the height of that. Just being like, it's just a toy, or this is just a G.I. Joe, or this is, just an X-Wing from 1970,
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, nerds. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Modern Technology Watches. Once again, please introduce yourselves and talk about what you do and where people can find more of you.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you
It's
so
definitely been
much.
a pleasure.
It's a lot of fun.
yeah,
We got to talk
anytime.
about things that mean stuff to us. Yay! And our childhoods. So again, we're from the Dork Web, and we love things all dork themed. We like kind of having fandoms, people of different fandoms coalesce, even if it doesn't have anything to do necessarily with dork things, but you're essentially a dork for life, or you're a dork for some type of creation, whether it be, music, cooking. You dork out over stuff to the level that you either want to do something with it in your life to make a living, or you're doing it as a hobby and you just kind of want to tune in and see some of our fan art. We love stickers, pins, patches. We like to support small businesses, and even if that small business is just you as a creator. We are both aspiring voice actors, so this is great exercise for us. All our little cackles and fizzes and pops. The Dork Web, we just want to support other dorks. Doesn't matter what you nerd
Being
out
dorky,
over.
yeah.
And we're just a little budding community, and hopefully people can follow our journey and then do whatever they want to do. Inspired by our fumbling.
And where can people find you to follow and get connected with your stuff?
One thing I am quite proud of is that we do have the Dork Web for everything. So very easy. Twitter @ the Dork Web. Instagram is where you'll find we live most.
Most of the stuff,
Most
yeah.
of the stuff is Instagram. And then we are on the TikTok, because I have a young ambassador sister who keeps me young with all these different platforms emerging. We have @ the Dork Web on TikTok. So we'll be doing some fun stuff like that. if you're interested in collaborations, we also have the Dork Web at gmail.com.
And don't forget about the YouTube videos
Oh, dear.
that we made so
Oh,
long
gosh.
ago. We also have a Facebook channel. I don't know what to call it. Facebook page, which
We do
is
have-
a little different from what you'll find on the other platforms, but still really great.
Yes, I have a friend from back home who actually was posting a lot of things that I found uplifting or interesting or punny or funny or make you believe in humanity. And so he runs our Facebook page from Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Really
and
nails it, yeah.
And we love him
Really
very
nails
much.
it.
Sean, thank you so much for being our Dar Master.
Awesome. Well, Jen and Gabe from the Dork Web, it's been a pleasure having you both here. And
Likewise.
we will convene again at some point during this season of Modern Technology Watches for Back to the Future Part 2. And until then, I'm Rob Vincent.
I'm Gila Drazen.
And thank you for listening to Modern Technology Watches. You can send us email at watches@modern.technology. Once again, working.
You can find us on Twitter at MTPodcastNet.
You can. And you can find this podcast, the other stuff we do, and whatever stuff we start doing in the future at modern.technology on that there internet.
That there internet there. So until next time, we thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you at the movies.
We'll see you in the future.
Hooah.
You've been listening to episode 201 of Modern Technology Watches with Gila Drazen and Rob Vincent, joined by very special guests Jen Sujin Yoon and Gabe Williams of the Dork Web. Go to modern.technology on the web for more info on this show, our other work, and our social media plutonium. Our music is The Promise by Torley Wong, released Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. Find more from Torley at torley.com. Thank you, Torley. Content from wikipedia.org is used under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. This podcast is released under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0, produced by modern.technology. Send us email at watches@modern.technology. And if you like us, tell somebody.
There was a DeLorean in the bathroom.
Yes, there is one. There's a couple of those, like, just scattered around here. I have a couple over there on the windowsill.